Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the UKSimRacing community's GT3 League Season 11, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 6 of 9 as we come to the close of the second third of the season at none other than the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. It is our final return to Spain for this season, and what a circuit to make our way to, in the fact that this circuit, which is considered to be perhaps one of the all-rounder circuits on the European theatre, is a circuit that brings together an eclectic mix of extended straights, hairpins and sweeping corners, and in all what it means is there's no one right way to go about setting up the car for the Spanish circuit. Indeed, around here it comes down to setting up the car for the driver's preference, and into the driver maximising their lap time around here and nailing the corner lap after lap in order to get it right. Indeed, if you do find yourself getting it right, you could be receiving glory and victory, but get it wrong, however, you may end up in one of the multiple gravel traps, or far worse, an early retirement from the race. But of course, with this being our 6th round in the calendar, it is our 6th sprint in succession, and this is a pivotal round coming into tonight for the simple reason that after today we'll be making our way into our first endurance race round of the season, and with that could we potentially see a shift in the tone of the racing as we make our way into the final third. Well, we'll have to wait and see. All that and more brought to you live here on the official UKSimRacing YouTube channel. Indeed, you're tuning live by the channel right now, and hello to all you guys and girls in the YouTube chat, and remember, this channel only available at youtube.com, search for UKSimRacing, alternatively UKSR as we're abbreviated to. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel today, make sure to do so that way you can stay up to date with all the latest broadcasts and highlight reels that we have to offer, and plenty more on the channel as we go from strength to strength in 2023. As we get ready to go racing today, we'll come to our schedule shortly, but it is going to be a thriller, there's no doubt about that, as all our drivers are currently getting set in the final practice warm-up session. But coming onto our calendar then, to remind you of how far we've come and what we've still got to go, we can see that we started off all the way back on the 25th of June in round number 1 at the Fuji International Speedway. And there in Japan, we saw our opening sprint contested by a multitude of drivers aiming to go for gold from the outset, and the brilliant battle in particular right at the end of our race in the elite class between Sam Sherwood and Erik Røseth, when it came down to fine margins, with Sherwood coming away with the victory. And then in round number 2, we made our way to the Spain for the first time this season for the Circuit de Jerez on the 2nd of July, having made its debut on the UKSimRacing GT3 calendar in Season 10. We eagerly brought it back onto the calendar for this season, and what a circuit and a set of battles we did have there, in the fact that up and down the field, plenty of battling, and with it, it was the rise of Erik Røseth there, where he was able to put 2 and 2 together with regards to putting off some stellar results. But also in the pro class, we got to see the rising Aaron McGregor really start to be reeled in by his peers, albeit making 2 wins in a row at the Circuit de Jerez after his win in Japan, the key point being the pace gap really had come down. And then round number 3, we made our way over to the other Spanish circuit, was introduced to the iRacing simulator platform as of this season, Motorland Aragon. And they're more commonly associated with being a major test circuit in terms of major motorsporting calendars, including the likes of Formula 1 and whatnot. Well, Motorland Aragon, definitely a circuit which sprung a surprise for many a driver on the 9th of July, and tyre wear and degradation being such a huge factor over the course of the racing, and we got to see there in the AM class plenty of battling, and where it was the rise of Jack Wyborn, albeit at the deficiency of its teammate from TPA Racing, Stephen Parker Hamilton. And then round number 4, to wrap up the first half of the season, we made our way to the United States of America for the Virginia International Raceway, or VIR as we like to refer to it, and the Virginia State Circuit delivering a thriller on the 16th of July, and will that set us up for a break fortnight where all the drivers are able to take a rest, may even decide to stay in the United States of America in preparation for the return. And last week, when we returned on the 6th of August, it was none other than the roller coaster of road racing known as Road Atlanta, and in the state of Georgia in the US of A, we got to see some very firsts in terms of our racing. Indeed, at VIR we got to see Racing Nav Esports AM take victory across all 3 classes, which was a first, but we got to see some firsts at Road Atlanta which I think will stand in the minds of some drivers in particular, including Matt Edmondson, who pulled off his first win in the AM class in his UKSimRacing GT3 League career. Indeed, and a result that's expected to be a long time coming, but finally coming after the best part of 40 plus races entered. But today is round number 6 on the 13th of August, and we are back in Spain for the final time this season for the Barcelona-Catalunya circuit. And after today, next weekend we'll be in France for the Circuit de la Sarthe, also known as the Circuit de 20 Hours du Mans, but we all refer to it and know it as Le Mans, and that will be on the 20th of August for our first endurance race round of the season. And there's going to be 90 minutes of racing action, double the duration of our sprints, and all our drivers will be very eager to try and keep it on the tarmac and keep it consistent throughout. And then we'll be making our way over to Australia for the penultimate and final rounds of the season. We'll be our penultimate round, round number 8, on the 27th of August. And we've got our final sprint race round, and a very different venue to race at, Phillip Island's Grand Prix circuit, and one that's not normally known outside of the Australian theatre when it comes to the likes of V8 supercars, but our drivers will be taking on Phillip Island, and let me reassure you, it is a circuit where GT3 machines are absolutely going to love it, with sweeping corners, major elevation changes and extended straights. We're going to have plenty of battles lap after lap, and our season finale will be at the most infamous Australian circuit around the world. We all know and love it, and we refer to it as Bathurst, but it's formerly known as Mount Panorama, and on the 3rd of September, in our final endurance race of the season, we bring it all to a close with round 9 and 9 and announce our champions. There's still plenty to go, but you can see the rounds are running out, and with it the championship points are running out as well. But coming onto our circuit for today then, we're at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, taking on the historic layout, as you can see from the circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com. Thank you to them for their wonderful simulator and the circuit maps that come with it. And as our drivers make their way around the 13 corner circuit today, you can see immediately that all-round nature of the circuit really being emphasised with regards to the circuit map, with the opening 2 corners forming a medium to low speed chicane, albeit low speed at first then going up to medium speed, an extension of medium speed sweepers at turns 3 and 4, the run into a hairpin at turn number 5, and such forth. It repeats as we go into the 2nd and 3rd sector, albeit we don't have the treacherous final chicane, which has seen its removal from a number of major motorsport calendars over the last couple of years, including Formula 1. This circuit featuring on most calendars within the major motorsport theatres where it is Formula 1, which we keep bringing up, alternative World Superbike Championship or GT World Challenge Europe, is a mainstay of racing calendars because of the fact it brings out so much intense racing, and also the fact it's such a tricky circuit to master, and that's why it's such an enjoyed circuit for drivers and teams alike, indeed spectators at home and circuit side as well. As our drivers make their way around the circuit today, they'll charge down the extended start-finish straight just over 1 kilometre in length down towards turn number 1, hard on the brakes there, coming into a 2nd or 3rd gear corner depending on their machinery, and as they make their way right into left through turns 1 and 2, they'll immediately go up to full throttle through turn 2 and up towards the long right-hander at turn number 3. Then it's all about balancing the throttle and returning to full throttle as soon as you can, and if you get it right, you'll carry all the speed up towards turn number 4 at Repsol corner. Onto the brakes, our drivers will go nice and early there, looking to now a nice early apex. Some will dare to go for a late apex. There's multiple lines through turn number 4, and with it also the opportunity to go 2 or even 3 wide if you get it right, and as they make their way through the long right-hander, it's down towards turn number 5. We say down because it's a downhill braking zone, and one that can cause many a driver to go long and go into the gravel trap on the outside, but as they make their way through the left-hander, using the preload differential, their cars to absolutely charge their way through turn number 6 and in towards turn 7. They'll make their way into TV3 corner, left into right chicane at turn 7 and 8, where track limits are an absolute nightmare for drivers in the fact they want to cut the turn 8 corner as much as possible, but cut it too much and they may get a stern warning from the stewards as they go uphill in towards turn number 9, the corner. It's loathed by everybody when you don't talk about the chicane at the circuit. Turn number 9 being the off-camber right-hander, where it's an uphill rise, and as our drivers make their way through the right-hander, the car will be gradually forced out wide to the left-hand side of the circuit, and if you get it right, you'll carry all the speed down the back straight in towards turn number 10. We're going to be running at turn number 10, the older hairpin, so not the hairpin that used to exist, the low-speed hairpin, but we're running a hairpin that's more synonymous with the modern-day high-speed hairpin. And as our drivers make their way into turn number 10, through the left-hander they'll go, and they'll wind their way out towards turn number 11, where it's a switch back on the circuit via 180 degrees through the uphill right-hander, and then down through turn number 12, they'll drop into turn 13 to complete lap and do it all over again at Catalunya corner. We're coming on to our rules for today because we can't go racing without rules. As we can see, car setup wise, drivers are not permitted to change their car without penalty at any point during the season, and as far as we are aware, there are no car changes as of today. Albeit we do have some new drivers on the grid and we will introduce them in due course. Car fuel load wise, they'll be restricted to 50%, that's 50 for all races, and well, that is in order to mix up the strategies. Then we can see qualifying wise, a lone qualifying format shall be used, which means all the drivers in qualifying take to an isolated instance of the circuit where they're able to put in their laps without having to worry about traffic, alternatively gaining the tow of another driver. So it really comes down to drivers maximising their lap time in a controlled environment, and drivers shall have 10 minutes to set their best possible time in qualifying. But what about the races? Well, in general, they shall commence via a double file rolling start. This is the tradition of the UKSimRacing GT3 League. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements, but we are expecting one pit stop today as a minimum, given the fact this is a 45-minute race and the fuel tank's not going to take them to the end unless they do a huge amount of fuel saving, but they'll be off pace for the majority of the race if so. Each driver has one fast repair available to them should they end up in an incident they need to take some repair work, and all race journeys shall be conducted post-race. Also, a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty specifically for sprint races if they accumulate 17 or more instant points. That's what they've got to be wary of track limits for the simple reason they get it wrong too many times and they may very quickly find their race in the bin when it comes to the fact they've had to come on in for that drive-through penalty. That's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. And as we look to our live pictures here, let's take you through your schedule for tonight. Times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1. And as we can see, in just under 4 minutes time, we're going into our qualifying session at 10 minutes in duration. And all of our drivers absolutely eager to try and nail it from the outset in terms of getting it on pole. And while overtaking can be tricky around here, particularly in high downforce machinery, albeit GT3 racing machines do have a relatively moderate amount of downforce, so overtaking is going to be possible, but track position is something you can defend well here. So Catalonia's qualifying session is definitely going to prove it to be an important one. And then we'll make our way in to our race for the day. That'll be at 8:15, the 45-minute sprint race, and that'll be round number 6. Albeit we should point out there will be a 5-minute break between qualifying and the sprint race in order to give our drivers ample time to switch their setups over from their qualifying setups to their race setups, and also to have a comfort break. So that's why there is a slight delay in the schedule. But as all our drivers now get themselves set and making their way on around on their final warm-up laps here, when we do look to a couple of drivers out of the circuit currently, including the pro driver from Newbridge Esports, Brandon Hay in the 96, as he makes his way on around. They come through turn number 10 and up into 11 into the uphill right-hander, and we had the opportunity to catch up with the number 96 driver in the build-up to tonight, and he was saying to me when I asked him for his thoughts in terms of how he's feeling for the race, well, he's expecting the BMW M4 not quite necessarily to propel him to the front of the field for the simple reason. And he does feel as though the BMW a bit sluggish in the corners around here, and we have seen that over the course of the season thus far. This really has been a season where the circuit's got a good number of extended straights, such as the road Atlanta last week, and the BMW M4 really does seem to be the car to go for, with the Mercedes AMG Evo being the second best. Meanwhile, if you've got a corner-focused circuit, and indeed we saw that in Motorland Aragon, for example, and it is the Porsche 992, which seems to be on top form. Speaking of which, here is Ryan Davies in the elite class in the TT Sport Kimi 992, the number 85 car, and with this Porsche recently introduced the iRacing service to replace the previous 991 machine, and it definitely has taken the balance performance by storm for this season, indeed the field by storm, and we have seen this Porsche really prove to be dominant at most circuits thus far, albeit the other machines available in the GT3 class have given it their best, and it's not as though we've seen Porsches win every single race in each of the classes. Indeed, we've had Ferraris, have BMWs, we haven't quite had a Mercedes take a win yet, alternatively a McLaren, but the point being around here, we do have some car variety in the field, and therefore when the Porsches do drop the ball, immediately other drivers are there to pick things up, as Ryan Davies dropping the ball. They're going into the pit and making haste to the barrier, but as he comes on down pit lane, meanwhile we look to Chris Kirkland, who comes across the timing line there, albeit I think he's going to take his way to the pit. He's decided he's had enough of doing any more practice with 2 minutes to go on the clock, and we instead look to Simon Hartley for TT Sport Tower. As the Englishman making his way on around here, looking quite comfortable at the moment, and he's currently 5th fastest in the AM class, but the majority of our drivers now opting to be in the pit lane, and I think they feel as though they've got all their practice done and dusted. As Hartley winding his way on through turn number 11 there and into 12. We'll get you some on-board laps in the qualifying session, we can promise you that. And as Hartley makes his way on down, well, meanwhile we also do look to Kerry Kokoran, and we did see in the YouTube chat a little bit earlier on saying that time is daring, and indeed very eager to get behind the wheel to go racing is Kerry Kokoran, the American for Downforce Racing. And we also look to the YouTube chat and say hello to a good number of you, including Honas Racing, who said, wonder if I managed to finish tonight. And I do believe Honas Racing is, unless I'm very much mistaken, I believe that is Richard Jones. If it's not Richard Jones, then it's Stuart Pearson. I do get them mixed up every so often. I do apologise for that. We do wish both of them best of luck for slow and steady racing. We also do say hello there to Ziga Luzar, who says hi, and hi to Ziga. We also say hello to Craig Tiddleston for FR20 Sim Race, who says good luck in tonight's race, guys. Looking forward to watching the action. We also say hello there to Thomas Cope. Good evening to you, Thomas. Hope you're doing well. And also to Matthew Morris, who says good luck, gang. Indeed, cheering on his drivers. As meanwhile, we do look to Steinar Sani for Racing Lab Esports AM2, and the Racing Lab Esports AM teams here. Of course, we have Team 1, Team 2, and Team 3. They're all sporting new liveries for tonight, and I think these liveries are going to stand for the remainder of the season. A slightly different take on the traditional dark red stroke white onto black configuration here, and a very striking livery, I must say, for the Norwegians BMW AM4, and perhaps they'll give them a little bit of an extra 1 or 2 miles now, albeit in their minds, of course. Liveries don't necessarily and give you a speed boost. Well, perhaps in the real world they do, depending on how much layering is and how much mass they add to the car in terms of the car wrapping. But here on the simulator they don't. But when you're running a car that you like the look of, I can tell you one thing, it gives you a little bit of a motivational boost, and that can be worth 1 to 2 tenths a lap, just simply because you're in a car where you're really pushing for it, because you love the car, you love the looks of it, and therefore you want to do the car justice. And Sani will be looking to do that, given the fact he is one of our major contenders in the AM class. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for qualifying 10 minutes. Who's going to be on pole in the respective classes come the end of it? Well, let's find out. And as all our drivers begin to make their way out of pit lane here, well, it will be a very gradual start for a number of drivers as Martin Tillin making his way on down. And the McLaren MP412C. And given the relative conditions here today at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, albeit right now, as we can see here, Tilling rolling his way on through, it is going to be, I think, a qualifying session whereby we'll see the best laps coming in right at the end of the session, because we do show you the weather here, well, as we can see right now in the suburban area of Montmeló in the city of Barcelona, and this circuit being in the region or the community, the autonomous community of Catalonia in Spain, of course. We can see there an ambient temperature right now of what is 18 degrees centigrade and a track temperature of 18 degrees centigrade. It's quite early hours in the morning as well on simulated time. It's currently coming up to 8 o'clock in the morning, which does mean around here the circuit relatively cool compared to how much it can be. And as other drivers were saying down the paddock, they are expecting the tyres to really take a heavy amount of wear here despite the lower temperatures, particularly the left-hand side tyres, with the fact there's a number of extended right-handers around this circuit. You've just seen Tilling going up to one now in the form of turn number 9, and will these corners really do load those left side tyres and cause them to wear down rather drastically. So in the race, tyre wear is going to be a big factor, but what about qualifying? What can we expect to be in qualifying? Well, we are expecting, in terms of the machines out there, the Porsche 992s to be the favourable car for pole position in its respective class, given the fact it's got a lot of natural rotation in the car, drivetrain being rear engine, rear wheel drive, as is the preference of Porsche, the German manufacturer. And we do look at Alex Hill here making his way on down. And speaking of Alex Hill, one of our new debutants for today for Tiki Sim Racing, and well, in fact for Tiki Sim Sport I should say, not Sim Racing. Let's get the team name right, albeit they do enjoy sim racing, and he'll be competing in the elite class for the remainder of this season. I'm glad to see him out on circuit as he winds his way on through turn number 11, and he's one of 2 new drivers on the grid, the other one being in the form of a pro class driver who we do just try to find, and here he is in the form of Team Hard, none other than Aaron Herbert here, and he'll be racing in the number 5 BMW M4, and we're looking forward to seeing how he can shake things up in the pro class. And in the final practice session he was top 5 at one point, provisional pole. So right now Aaron Herbert definitely, I think, feeling as though he can give everybody a run for their money today, and we look forward to seeing the Team Hard machine in action as he heads on through turn number 10 and up towards 11. We are expecting cars that are front engine rear wheel drive, such as the BMW M4 and also the Mercedes AMG Evo, to struggle in qualifying by comparison with their more manoeuvrable peers. Some of the bogey cars, meanwhile, or the cars to watch out for that may spring some surprises, do include the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evos, such as being piloted here by Simon Andre Livingston for Racing Lab Esports AM, as he makes his way on down there through turn number 5 and up towards 7 on his first flying lap. And also we do have the occasional McLaren in the field. You saw Martin Tillin with one earlier, albeit we don't have any Audis in attendance here today. The Audi R8, which we would also expect to potentially go very well, particularly in the mid-section of the lap, so going from turn number 5 all the way round up to turn number 10. And we also do have, I believe, the Lamborghini Huracan Evo, which is not in the field either today. I believe Empire Motorsport not being able to bring their machines to the grid, and therefore a bit unfortunate. We hope to see them on the grid in the near future. Joe Newman definitely trying to make the Lamborghini Huracan Evo work as best as he can, but not here in attendance. So as our drivers continue the way on around here, we continue to look to Simon Andre Livingston heading up towards what will be the end of the lap now, as he comes on down through the right-hander of turn number 12 and into 13, and as he rolls his way through the right-hander, what's it going to be here? Sometimes start to get fed through into our timing board. Walker will set the initial fastest lap, elite class 40.974, but meanwhile we see there it is going to be Livingston on 42.206, and well, as he sets the lap, meanwhile heading on down towards turn number 1, Thomas Barjac going a bit fast there, 42.153, only half a tenth between the two of them. But meanwhile in the pro class we can see Darren Sharples, he sets the pace there in the pro class on a 41.077, only at 2 tenths, if that, off of the pole lap of overall and the elite class of Peter Cox in the Porsche 992. So it does look as though right now everybody really winding their way up to temperature and speed. And I think we are going to see the best lap come on the 2nd or 3rd lap here in qualifying, which is due time, given the fact we are almost 5 minutes into this 10-minute session. Remember, they have unlimited laps available, but they have 10 minutes to get a lap on the board. But as we do say hello, there's some more of you in the YouTube chat, including Alex, I believe that's Alex Hiscox, our our gentleman who does keep an eye on those highlight reels and says, I wonder how spicy the highlights will be for this one then. And also we say hello to St. Anthony as we see they're getting it wrong. Sharples at turn number 5, the rear of the car just coming on around. And well, very easy to do there, just overloading the weight transfer of the car. But meanwhile, we look to Thomas Barges in the Rexy machine here, running a tribute to the Porsche 911 GTE livery that featured in the Centenary at 24 Hour Le Mans earlier this year. A beautiful livery indeed. I believe it was one of the team's drivers, their son or daughter, drew a picture of a dinosaur and they wanted to get it onto the car as a livery, and well, it definitely does stand out. But meanwhile, we do look to Brandon Hay as he stands out in the Newbridge Esports livery here of his own, and he makes his way down towards the final corner. We'll very shortly ride on board with him for a flying lap of the circuit as he comes on through the final corner, and he's going to take us around. He's made his way down towards turn number 1 as he comes to the end of a lap and heads onwards towards the braking zone for the right-hander. You see, heading up to a maximum speed here, which will be in excess of 160 miles an hour, and braking at the 100 meter board there, all the way down from 162 to third gear, 75 miles an hour, and then going through the left-hand apex and turn number 2 flat out now as he charges into three and turns in nice and early here to offset the understeer that's native to the BMW M4, and then on the power as soon as he sees his reference marker, albeit not quite get on the power as soon as he'd like to there, but does extend the car over to the left-hand side for braking into turn 4, down to second gear, nice early apex, ride that apex, go get the car rotated, get it dug in, and now back on the throttle. We use all the exit, a very wide exit to turn number 4 and into turn 5. Braking about 120 metres from corner apex, down through the left-hander, nice light apex in second gear, back on the power here as he runs wide there in order to use all the road width, and then into turn number 7, onto the brakes at the start of the entry curve on the right, as he comes through the left-hander, plenty of apex curve, don't let the car go too deep off the corner, as otherwise you'll take a track limit infringement. He does so into turn 9, lift off the throttle, as he's staying full, he does indeed, but takes a bit too much apex curve. You can see the sausage curve there, the little yellow strip as Hayes shaking the nose of the car from left to right. He's not happy with that, as he goes onto the brakes now, down into the turn 10 hairpin, braking 100 metres from corner apex, nice midpoint apex, second gear, riding the curve there to pull the car around, and turn number 11, again on the brakes, down to second gear, take a bit of a V-shape approach here, but understeer just creeping in again, and well, I think he'll make his way now up towards turn number 12, and just flow his way on down. He's going to the back of the throttle there slightly, get himself set up for one more lap, as he comes down to the final corner, and Hay heading through the right-hander now. We will go on to another lap, but that is a lap of the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya historic layout, as brought to you by Brandon Hay as he now goes on to his next lap. 9, there's a bit more time out as he did improve quite considerably in sector 2, well, as we leave him to it there. A nice lap to begin with, but it all went wrong at turn number 9, and he's going to try and find a way to make a bit more headway next time around, as meanwhile lap times are continuing to be shaken up, and we see a question there with regards to, is Matt Edmondson your AM winner from last time out racing tonight? Unfortunately he's not feeling 100%. I did jokingly ask him, is it because of him still celebrating his win from last week and he's not been feeling too well at the moment. You do get the seasonal bug or two, so we do wish Matt all the best in his recovery and hope he's out on circuit for next week's thrilling endurance round at Le Mans. But we also see Joe Newman there, or Newman Pass, saying Matt is still at his victory lap from last week, and indeed I think he's been getting a bit of a ribbon from the other drivers down in the paddock, but to be fair, when you pick up your first win, it's completely understandable. Everyone's happy for you, and well, as Hay makes his way up through turn number 7 and 8, rolling on through right now, definitely trying to improve further, and we're heading up towards the right-hander of turn number 9. Well, no improvement thus far, but meanwhile we do look at some other drivers on circuit here, including current provisional pole sitter overall and in the elite class, and that is Erik Røseth, as we see the number 42 driver coming on down towards turn number 5, goes a bit deep there, and will the car just step in wide? It's going to cost him 1 to 2 miles an hour on corner exit as he makes his way up towards turn number 7. And I think a lot of drivers now starting to find some difficulty and getting their laps together. I think just the nature of the Spanish circuit catching them out, and we've just had a lap coming for Aaron Herbert. He's gone P9 in the Pro class, but meanwhile in the AM class it is Stephen Parker Hamilton who's in the pit lane. He thinks he's got it done, Parker Hamilton. He's currently provisional pole by a 10th over Simon Andre Livingston, and what we talked about the fact that last week this man in the form of Parker Hamilton just has had no luck this season whatsoever, but could he finally have some luck today? As meanwhile, it's Martin Tinney who parks up there. He's put it P3 in the elite class. That'll be as far as he goes. And remember, when we do see the clock strike 10 minutes, that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, as Walker there decides to park the car off circuit. He's going to go back to the pit lane. We've got a couple of drivers still on laps. They're going towards the end of them, and Sander Versteeg goes P8 in the AM class of 42.418. Steinar Sani goes P4 in the same class of 41.737. Meanwhile, Alex Hill off camera's come across the time. He's P7 Elite. He's moved up to P4 Elite. But as we look here to Ryan Davies heading to line, I don't think this is going to be an improvement from Davies. I think he's going to stay P2, but still that's not a slouch in terms of a lap. But right now, just look at that delta between Røseth's pole lap and the rest of the elite class by 6 tenths of 39.841. That is astonishing from Erik Røseth, and I think that just goes to show you the caliber which he's bringing here today. But that is going to be qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, as I don't think Science's going to get to line. He runs a bit wide, and that's going to invalidate the lap he was delivering. But qualifying is complete. It's Røseth on pole for the elite and overall, Tunstall on pole for the pros, and Park Hamilton on pole for the AMs. But as our drivers now make their way to the grid, this is how they'll line up. Well, in fact, we'll take you through the grid order in the next 5 minutes. Let's not get ahead of ourselves there, but definitely a qualifying session with a lot to talk about, and in particular, Erik Røseth putting it on pole position overall by 6 tenths over the field. I mean, we've seen some sizable margins in the history of the UKSimRacing GT3 League, but I don't recall, at least in the last 5 seasons, unless my memory's getting a little bit foggy, we've ever seen a driver put it on pole by 6 tenths. I think we've had some put it on pole by 2 to 3 tenths, but that is an absolutely astonishing pole position time from Røseth. And how will that translate into success in the race? Remember, qualifying is only one part of the conundrum, and it's a long run down towards turn number 1, and it only takes the 2-3 wide through the opening drivers and potentially a little bit of elbow bashing, and we could end up seeing the field shaken up. Not that we're putting the commentator's curse on Røseth for anybody, but it is the way that this circuit does gradually play out, in the fact that in the run down towards turn number 1, it is fast, it's furious, it's very frantic, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a couple of cars in a bit of an instant there. Not wishing it on anyone, but as we see Casper Brotner making his way down into turn number 5, on through the left-hand hairpin there. A very tricky corner. In fact, it's a banked corner, but at the same time, it's one of those corners whereby you do really want to try and get the car to settle down under braking and rotate as early as possible. Whereas we do have a couple of minutes here for our drivers just to get themselves all set up and comfortably acquainted with their setups of the car before we do go racing. We'd just like to take a moment to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that if you have been enjoying the racing this season, and if you've ever wondered how you can support UKSimRacing beyond subscribing to the YouTube channel, which you're tuning in live to watch this broadcast today, did you know there is a quick way to do so via our affiliates? For UKSimRacing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Toyota Sim Racing Coaching, Race Anywhere, and Demon Tweaks. And if you do head to our website, that's uksimracing.co.uk today, well, you'll be shown the following page, as our website does appear on screen for you, and there it is. And as you can see in the top right corner, we have a button which will take you to our Discord. Now, why would you want to join our Discord, I hear you ask? Well, firstly, if you ever want to be on the grid for a UK sim racing event, whether it's a championship or alternatively a one-off special, it is a mandatory requirement for you to be part of the UK Sim Racing Discord, so you can receive all the latest driver briefing information and indeed race event information. But also, coming on to our affiliates, is the fact that our affiliates provide discount codes that are only available on the UK Sim Racing Discord, and if you use one of those codes as part of your purchase, well, it's a win for you because you get a discount on your purchase as the consumer, and it's a win for the UK Sim Racing community, for we are a non-profit organisation, and every penny we make through affiliate purchase where we get a kickback, we fund all those affiliate earnings back into the community to fund future series, including future seasons of the GT3 League, and it's an 11th season, of course, and looking to season 12 in the near future. And also we do have the Porsche Cup, which is currently in season 7, still plenty more seasons to come, and we've got other leagues and events planned for the remainder of 2023 and plenty more in 2024. So do remember, a little purchase can go a long way in supporting UK sim racing, but now we do have to wonder whether pole position laps in the respective classes for our drivers can go a long way in terms of enabling them to achieve their aspirations today. Well, meanwhile, we look to Mark Johnson as we return to your trackside pictures, and well, the UK sim racing Clark driver definitely has had a frustrating season so far in the Mercedes AMG Evo. It has just not worked out from round to round, and indeed a far cry from where we've seen him previously. Keeping in mind, of course, for this season, he was promoted to the Pro class after his brilliant performances in the AM class over the last couple of seasons, but this move up to the Pro class really just has not worked out thus far. Not expecting him to be demoted, but I think it really has been a season which has hit hard in terms of the fact he's been definitely consistent all the way through, but also the poor luck he's had, and it does seem as though the Porsche 992 were really offsetting the straight line speed strengths of the Mercedes AMG, and the Mercedes just has not been there compared to what's been in previous seasons. But knowing Mark, he's a very determined racer and one not to be too let down by things or upset by things. I reckon next season, indeed later on this this season. Let's not just look ahead to season 12 already, but in the fact, I definitely think as this season's gone on, he's dug in, his determination continues to shine on through, and you never know, we've still got multiple rounds to come. We've got 4 races to go, including the one today, and we could see Johnson still pull off a surprise or two before we're all done and dusted with this season, and I think he'd love to do that. And I think many of you tuning in right now would love to see that 6.3 litre V8 Mercedes AMG engine take a win one day, and well, do let us know if you want to see it win as Johnson makes his way on around him. He's got definitely an uphill battle today, but still he'll know that he is going to take it one lap at a time. Meanwhile, as we look from him to is Håkon Grebstad, your winner from Road Atlanta last time out overall and in the elite class. Well, today the BMW M4 not quite on the pace in terms of qualifying. He'll be starting down towards the bottom end of the top 10 of the elite class. But again, the Ignium Motorsport driver, the #1, the defending elite champion from season 10. One thing you can always count on him, he will spring surprises and he will find a way through. A very diligent driver, and well, that diligence can go a long way in order to assist him in taking podiums and victory. But now we take the long march to the grid, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for race number 6 of the season. So as our drivers make their way on to the grid, this is how they'll line up for our race today. Erik Røseth takes pole position overall and in the elite class for Racing Esports AM, and is joined on the front row, albeit 6 tenths back based on qualifying, by Ryan Davies for UKSimRacing GT3 Now on the second row of the grid, it is your pro pole sitter, Kasper Tunstedt for UKSimRacing. A great qualifying lap for him, and he's joined on the second row by Martin Tilling for UKSimRacing GT3 On row at number 3 is Chris Kirkland for Downforce Racing, who's joined by Alex Hill for UKSimSport, with Ryan Moles and Peter Cox line up on row number 4 for Protect Motorsport and UKSimRacing Clark respectively. Your top 10 is completed by Håkon Grebstad for Ignium Motorsport and Richard Jones for Slow and Steady Racing. Then we have Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing and Casper Brotner for Old Dudes and Cars line up on row at number 6. Row 7 goes to the pair of Darren Sharples and Rudy Avitston, both in the pro class for UKSimRacing Price and Racing Esports AM2 respectively. And then we have behind them, starting P15 on row 8, Symphony Esports is Cy Anthony, and your AM pole sitter, his first pole position in class this season for TPA Racing, Stephen Park Hamilton. Matt Strand and Simon Andre Livingston line up on row at number 9 for Racing Esports AM3 and AM1, and then behind them completing the top 20 on row at number 10, it's Brandon Hay for Newbridge Esports and Thomas Barger, the Privateer. On row number 11, on his debut, is Aaron Herbert for Team Hard, who is joined by Steinar Sani, who starts P22 for Racing Esports AM2, with row 12 going to Jack Wyborn for TPA Racing and Mark Johnson for UKSimRacing Clark. Now on row number 30, it's James Connolly for UKSimRacing Moss and Old Dudes and Cars is Daniel Bays, with Kerry Kokorin and Stuart Pearson lined up together on row at number 14 for Downforce Racing and Slow and Steady Racing. The top 30 round out by Sander Rustow for Team Norway Racing and Neil Smith for Disaster Prime Racing. It's then Simon Hartley and Marvin Cruz for UKSimSport Tyre and Bite Racing on row number 16. And on the final full row of the grid is John Doe for UKSimSport Kimmy and Racing Esports AM2's Thomas Asphaug. We've got Reece Saunders starting P35 for Team Year 1, not getting a lap on the board, but he completes our field of 35 drivers as they make the way on down towards turn number 1 now, ladies and gentlemen, albeit it's going to be the run of the line, and it all comes to the rolling start as will be led by Erik Røseth. He'll dictate the pace, and we'll wait for the green. And it's lights out and away we go for another sprint race in this season as Erik Røseth gets a great start off the line as they make their way down towards turn number 1 behind Ryan Davies and Kasper Tunstedt trying to squabble it out. Tunstedt on the left of your pitch, then the battle for P2 on the inside under braking, looking for the move, but Røseth gets clear as they head onto the anchors for the first time of asking, and as the drivers clear the way on through, Tunstedt going a little bit deep there, but he manages to hold on to the position as they wind their way up the hill in towards turn number 3. But meanwhile, further back, Richard Jones as well, making some headway here as the Slow and Steady Racing driver taking it anything but that now as they make their way through turn 3 and up towards 4. As they charge their way up into the braking zone, well, Martin Tilling looking up the inside here versus what is, I do believe, none other than the Downforce Racing car of Chris Kirkland gets the move on the inside for overall position, and behind him, in fact, Kirkland coming back here under braking into turn 5, Tilling not being allowed to brake on through, and the Kimmy driver for UKSimSport, I think, will be quite irritated at the fact he can't find his way out the order. It's me on Ryan Davies cutting up the inside there of Chris Kirkland and also Kasper Tunstedt. Well, in fact, it is Tunstedt who loses out to Davies, and in return, by going slowly there on the outside line, Chris Kirkland takes the lead of the pro class. But meanwhile, looking back into what is the AM class, we see Jack Wyborn right now for TPA Racing. He's once again found his way to the front of the AM field, and well, much like we've seen multiple times this season, if Wyborn's having good fortune. Who's having bad fortune? His teammate, Stephen at Parker Hamilton, and Parker Hamilton's all the way down in P12 in the M class, P33. We're not quite sure what's happened. We'll try and find out shortly. But meanwhile, further battling here as we do have Daniel Pays, the pro driver, trying to fend off Simon Andre Livingston for Race Lab Esports AM, and as they make their way up towards turn number 11, well, that's going around the outside. There's Stuart Pearson, who's trying to be very bold here as the Science Steady Racing 88 driver from England, as he looks to move, but in the end, on that outside line, has to back out of it due to running out of track. As they make their way down and in towards the final corner, we can see Neil Smith now getting closer. And Neil Smith, definitely one of those drivers who early on the season showed a lot of pace in the opening 4 rounds. That pace has slipped to a degree over the last couple of rounds, but still it's all the fire in there as they make their way down the start finish straight down towards turn number 1. And Rhys Saunders, who started from the very back of the field, already starting to cut his way up in towards turn number 1 here. Now up to what is their P25. Oh, he's looking for the move here for P24. Contact with Smith and the Team Year 1 driver backing off there just in time before they both go round. But a little bit of a tenuous moment there as meanwhile Thomas Aspel looks up the inside of Marvin Cruz behind, gets what is P at 26, and as they wind their way now up towards turn number 4, we're gaining places, but meanwhile it does look as though those early battles are now starting to settle down. Well, as we do take a look at some of the gains made by drivers thus far, we can see in what is, pardon me, in terms of our overall standings, very shortly we'll get to see some of the biggest gainers and the biggest losers so far in terms of the racing. In fact, we don't have the ability to get the gains right now, and there they are as they do appear on screen. And one driver's falling a long way down the order. He's taken a bit of a trip to the gravel. There is the Porsche 992 of Richard Jones, Science Steady Racing, who was one of the biggest gainers at the start and now has lost out drastically. He's now one of the biggest losers in return. He's lost 19 places and finds his way all the way down the order. Meanwhile, perhaps the biggest gainer on circuit right now is none other than Kerry Kokorin, who has moved up to P15, starting P27, and makes his way on through up towards turn number 11. And the Downforce Racing driver here, I think, very eager to make haste, already up to what is P7 in the pro class. I think feeling as though there's a bit more time out there. He's only just got to find it, the American, as they make the way on down through turn number 12 and into 13. We're coming towards the end of lap number 2 and on to lap number 3. Well, right now, a lot of our drivers are really starting to set their minds down onto a strategy and working this race out in terms of when they're playing to pit and looking a bit further back. Well, here is what is a trio of AM drivers led by Thomas Barger in P20. We then have what is Simon Andre Livingston P21, Stuart Pearson at P22, and as we can see, Barger defending the inside there. Livingston looking around the outside. Porsche versus Ferrari. Well, the Porsche, they'll be braver on the brakes. It's got the stronger brakes by comparison, but the key point being here in the fact that as our drivers make the way on through, it's now Livingston who's definitely got his sights on the position. This is a P5 in the AM class, it should be pointed out as we bring you back to the class standings on the left-hand side of your picture. And as they make the way up towards what is turn number 4, well, it's not going to be a potential move this time for Livingston, but meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see that Thomas Aspel has made his way ahead of what is, we did make his way ahead of Rhys Saunders, but Saunders has come back at him in the run to turn number 4, and as they make their way down to turn number 5, I think these two will try and settle and avoid battling one another, because they cost each other time and places when they want to go hunting after other elite drivers. And the next elite driver, given the fact they're battling for P24 overall, the next elite driver is Ryan Walker, who's up in P8, so they've got a lot of progress to make if they want to try and get on through. And as they head on through turn 7 late, we have had a few incidents happen right at the start of this race, and we will take a look back at those very shortly. But meanwhile, we can see here Martin Tillin making his way around the outside there before going into turn 11 versus Casper Tunstead. And Tunstead, after losing the lead to Chris Kirkland on the open lap, I think right now just settling down to rhythm and keeping his eyes on Kirkland, who's up the road, and not wanting to fight the elite drivers around him. As it comes to the end of lap number 3, going to lap 4, it is Erik Røseth who leads by a grinding advantage of 3.2 seconds ahead of second place driver Ryan Davies here. That's your top 2 elite class. Then we have your pro leader of Chris Kirkland P3 overall for Downforce Racing ahead of Martin Tillin P4. Ryan Moles will then be a bit further back in the elite class, but between Moles and Tunstead, between Tilling and Moles, we should say, is Casper Tunstead, your second place pro driver. And then you have Ryan Moles P6 overall ahead of Alex Hill on his debut right now, and a good start to today. P5 over the elite class, but meanwhile overall running in P7, losing 1 place in both categorizations since the start. Then we do have Ryan Walker P8 overall behind him, followed up by Brandon Hay, who is 3rd place pro at the moment, and he's ahead of Casper Bronto, who completes your overall top 10, and we're at P4 in the pro class, and eager to try and make a move on Brandon Hay, one of the biggest gainers in the pro class. In fact, he is the greatest gainer so far in terms of places made, and well, your leader in the AM class is Jack Wyborn here as he makes his way on through turn 4 and in towards 5. He's currently overall P13. He's got Steinar Sani the best part of 1.5 seconds behind as they make the way on down towards turn number 7. We take a look back at I believe the start of the race and exactly what happened when we went green flag racing. Well, as we did go racing, we looked at the blimp camera here, and well, we can see Jack White having a relatively slow start. The question on everyone's mind is, what happened to Stephen Parker Hamilton? Was he makes his way down towards turn at number 1? It all went wrong very early on for the 66 driver, and we can see Brandon Hay coming across the cover. Parker Hamilton switching to the other side, puts it in the middle of the road. There is Herbert behind. Aaron Herbert looking up the inside as they made their way through the corner. Very safe start for most drivers there, in fact. Parker Hamilton, a little bit of scrape potentially with Herbert, but nothing major. And as they made the way up through turn number 3, you can see Hay trying to make the move then while the Racing Lab Esports AM cars was side by side with another one of their teammates. And now everybody concertina in here into the braking zone for what was turn number 4. And this way it started to go wrong. Car across the road, that's Darren Sharple's getting it wrong. We got Parker Hamilton there taking a bit of a safe run. But we didn't see too much happening to Parker Hamilton in the opening 4 corners. So wherever it's gone wrong, it's happened somewhere on the lead lap. But not right now, he's gone very deep at turn number 5. But all the field surviving the opening few corners or thereabouts. And then we've had a car, oh goodness me, and that's where it all went wrong. So an instant further up the road, and Parker Hamilton just coming into the scene of the incident unexpectedly, and well, once again, it's come back to haunt Parker Hamilton, and the number of times this has happened. As we take a look back to the open lap from Rudy Avitsalen's perspective, the Racing Lab Esports AM2 try, we can see already contact there. I believe that Håkon Grebstad and Peter Cox coming together, and Avitsalen being caught up as trying to go around the inside of it, and then everybody in the way being ping-ponged back to what is the barrier and back onto the circuit, and that was the disaster between them all. But what exactly happened to Peter Cox and Håkon Grebstad is the question. When we take a look back at that battle between them as they made the way on down, you see they're both driving side by side there, and well, I think they may have just misjudged how much room to give each other, got caught in each other's cars, and so they returned to the tarmac. The cars getting unsettled in that transition to grass back to tarmac, and in the end it all ended in tears for so many so early on. And that was our major incident at the start of this race. And in terms of an update on what happened to Cy Anthony, we do believe when the formation lap got underway, he was towed to the pits. I think Cy Anthony decided to start from the pit lane, and what we can tell you as we look back to your live pictures now, that Cy Anthony is up into P8 in the elite class, and will that pit stop the pit lane start has definitely worked out for him. We will just double check whether he did opt to start from the pit lane, and yes he did, he opted to start from the pit lane as we understand it. So Cy Anthony going for a gamble, and that gamble may just be paying dividends in the end. But meanwhile, now as we look on to what is lap number 6, if my driver's not on it, they're about to go onto it. As he rolls around through, it goes a bit deep out the final corner in the toe. Always Neil Smith, and that's a run wide there with Dirty Air, and Cy Anthony rejoins, but definitely an easy mistake to make even at the highest level of racing. The Dirty Air so potent around here in terms of upsetting the aero balance of a car in the GT3 class, and will this circuit much loathed by Formula 1 drivers and much high downforce machinery for the simple reason the dirty air around here, plus the fact this circuit very open to wind change. The 2 and 2 together means that very quickly the aero balance of the car can shift from being very composed to disastrous. Well, speaking of disastrous, Reece Saunders there having a bit of a disastrous run into the gravel at turn number 1, and well, and as he rejoins, he now has to redo all the progress he's made. He drops back to P29. But meanwhile, looking from there back to Brandon Hay, well, right now the battle for P3 in the Pro class cannot be closer as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the Ridge Esports 96 BMW, and that is Casper Brotner behind. And well, the explanation as to how Hay made so many places early on was a very smooth start, but also steering clear of that danger, that huge incident in the mid-pack coming down into turn number 7. And well, as we look here to this battle, Brotner close, he could reach out and really give a little bit of a nudge to the rear of Hay's car, albeit he won't look to do that, he'll just look to keep getting close and keep on probing. But the point is here, I think Brandon Hay is battling against the current, which is that Porsche very strong. But if Hay can hold on for most likely the opening 20 minutes of this race, we do have a pit stop, and we're expecting most of our drivers to change 2 tyres. It would be the left side tyres that are going to change to the minimum, and this could quite work out for our drivers in terms of, in fact, it work out for Hay. He could try and force that Porsche into a situation whereby it loses its advantage of having the lap pace. For simple reason, its tyres will wear down more aggressively, as Brotner will have to really push hard to try and make the move. And also he's running dirty air, which will gradually overheat the front tyres in particular. As they make the way into turn at number 1 at once more. 10 minutes of this race complete. We've still got 35 to go. Plenty of time for opportunities to be created and mistakes to be made. Well, right now, Hay keeping Brotner behind. Matt Strand as well, also starting to creep his way into this battle. The Racing Lab Esports Aaron Free, a race winner this season, all the way back at the Virginia International Raceway, if my memory's not mistaken. But meanwhile, we see that once again, Brotner just taking a little bit of a sneak peek on the inside coming into turn number 4. But here he goes, looking around the outside into turn 5. Brotner's going to try and force this around the outside. This is going to be bold from Brotner, and Hay's going to see it coming. You can see Hay there knowing he can just run the car back onto onto the racing line in the defence, and as they make the way up towards where is turn number 7, we do say hello there to Jack Taylor in the YouTube chat, and also Darren Norquette, who says looks a bit of a struggle if you're not in the Porsche. Indeed, our Porsche drivers here looking quite favourable. We have seen a number of non-Porsche cars make a lot of progress at the start of this race, and now much like Brandon Hay, who's an example here, having to try and hold on to that progress after avoiding any early instants and offs. But as we do look here to Brotner getting close again, he's thinking about it every single time, and as we ride on board here with the Porsche 902 driver, well, I think his mindset is he wants to try and get Hay to make a mistake and make the move easier. He doesn't want to force this move, because otherwise what he'll do, he'll overheat the front tyres, he'll overheat the brakes as well, and that will cause him to have some excess wear, which will really upset the car later on. And again, as we said only moments ago, that I think is what Hayes hoping he can do. He can just force Brotner to get frustrated and do something silly behind, which will cost him the life of the Porsche. But as they make the way down towards turn number 1, right now Brandon Hay definitely proves resilient. You can see that straight line speed of the BMW M4. Brotner's closing very gradually in the toe, but it's by no means as fast as this was inverted, and the BMW is behind the Porsche at the same distance into the opening corner. And they're coming up through turns 1 and 2, and we'll leave them as they are currently. We look a bit further back to the battle for the lead of the AM class, and it's Wyborn versus Sani here as they make the way through turns 1 and 2. Jack Wyborn, a winner in the AM class, and we should point out we've not had a single double winner in the AM class this season. We've had multiple winners. In fact, all 5 rounds have been won by a different driver each round, and Wyborn and Sani both going for the right to be the first double winner in the AM class today as they make the way in towards turn number 4. Behind them is Daniel Pace, the old Dukes and Cars driver, who's trying to stay with them, albeit a pro driver trying to cut his way up the order. But as they make the way in towards turn number 4, right now Jack Wyborn doing everything right, and again we are seeing the shoe on the other foot here with regards to BMW trying to chase down the Porsche. That Porsche's got it all through the corners. Where it will lose out is on the straights versus the BMW. But then again, if Wyborn can make enough progress through this mid-sector and also the last corner and give himself about half a second going on to the next lap, he'll feel relatively safe. But meanwhile, Matt Strand here, who's had a bit of a moment, it would seem, is being passed there around the outside by where's Aaron Herbert. A nice move there from the BMW M4 driver Team Hard, making the race lap eastwards and free driver really just have to hold that tight line. But there that goes to show, I think the damage on Strand's car combined with what is a relatively clean car for Aaron Herbert, and once just gradually bringing its way up to pace, and the number 5 car making that pass work. As they head towards the end of the lap and on to what is for them now lap number 9. Meanwhile, we look from them to a bit further back down the order, and again to this battle between Sani and Wyborn. And you can see the exhibit here of what we were referring to only moments ago. That Porsche can open the gap up to what is the best part, half a second if not more over the second and third sector of this lap. And then we suddenly see the BMW now in the slipstream, albeit it will gain at least a 10th in the run down towards turn 1, but it's not enough to be able to get close enough and put the pressure on. And that's what Wyborn just needs to do. He needs to maximise the Porsche strength around it, which is its cornering capabilities, as sectors 2 and 3 really being the heart of where that Porsche gains all its lap time. As they made their way through turns 1 and 2, everyone knows the tower at the moment, no real opportunity in order to try and pass. In fact, Wyborn goes a bit deep there, and Sani getting closer, despite the fact that Wyborn there really outstepping the mark. And as they head in towards turn number 4, get back down to 3/10, but I think this is going to be a bit of a concertina. As meanwhile, we look a bit further back, and Marvin Cruz of Bike Racing feeling a bit feisty versus Cy Anstey, the elite driver defending hard versus Cruz. Cruz goes to the cutback here as Anstey goes a bit deep, and behind he's got Simon Hartley, who's also trying to put pressure on the TE Simsport driver, eager to make progress for P7 in the AM class. Well, I think the elite driver Anstey will now try and break away as he has a little bit of wobble down to braking, can't understeers and then oversteers, he tries to get it back together, and Marvin Cruz comes on through. Cy Anstey goes wide through turn number 6 to let Cruz take the track position, and as they make the way through what is turns 7 and 8, will be Marvin Cruz who gains the place overall there and gives himself a bit of a buffer to Simon Hartley. But meanwhile, we look from them to what is Aaron Herbert, who has just made another move. He's made his way up into P4 in the Pro Class versus Casper Brotner, and here is how the move was made. As they made the way down towards turn number 10, Herbert there going in on the brakes and all in. Now that was bold, a bit of contact however between the two drivers there. I think it will be a little bit of a surprise to Casper Brotner, but then again I think Brotner here will be wary of the fact now he can gauge just how close he can be versus Herbert. Herbert not afraid to trade some paint on that BMW M4, but a relatively nice move, albeit a little bit of door rub there, but I think they'll get away with that one. And as they made the way on to another lap from the replay pictures to your live pictures once again, we'll now Aaron Herbert trying to chase down Brandon. Now will be the battle of the BMWs. He will be eager to try and find a way of doing what Brotner was not able to, which is get on through and into that third place spot. And they do have what is a 7-second gap to Casper Tunstead, his B2 Pro. And well, right now it does seem as though Herbert's under a bit more pressure. There's a little bit of a wobble coming out turn number 4, a bit of power oversteer. Meanwhile, Brotner's going to try and go around the outside, but Herbert here can run in wide, given the fact not fully alongside at the moment. And as they make the way through turn 6 and into 7, well, Brotner's still there on the outside, but Herbert will come across here to defend. And as they make the way through turn 7, this is bringing Matt Strand back into the battle as they make the way up towards turn number 9 now, and this is where the Porsche can really gain a lot of lap time for this fast right-hander, as Herbert goes a bit wide. In fact, he will hit the cones there, and that will count as a track limit infringement, and now he has to go defensive here as they make the way down towards turn number 10. Onto the brakes they both go. Left-hander they go into first, and they'll be the right-hander after, and I think Brotner trying to set himself up for the outside to inside run, but Herbert sees it coming, brings the car over. Brotner brakes. Meanwhile, behind Matt Strand goes deep, tries to cut it back here to get a bit of speed. Herbert goes deep, coming through turn 11, a bit of contact there between Brotner and Herbert as they come into turn number 12. Side by side down the hill they go, and it's going to be Herbert who's on the outside. Brotner backs off, but he brings it back into the inside of 13. Side by side all the way through the final corner, and as they come on out, Herbert keeps it over the gravel, given the space there by Brotner. It's now a drag race down towards turn number 1, and what does the BMW do best out of the two of them? It drags the Porsche all the way down towards turn number 1. As they make the way down, we briefly lose Aaron Herbert. He rematerializes from the ether, and as they head onto the anchors here for turn number 1, Aaron Herbert stays ahead. But right now, this is definitely playing to the providence of with Brandon Hay just running away with P3 in the Pro class, and this battle for P4 is absolutely coming alive as they make the way onto turn number 4 very shortly. And as they come through the right hand, we've got Reece Saunders in the pit lane for Mike Gavin, so that's going to be slight anti-out to P8 in the elite class, but staying with his fight round, and Reece Saunders I think going for the earliest tactical pit stop here in terms of developing his strategy. But we ride on board with Matt Strand, who gets to watch from the popcorn seat view, if you will, of the battle for P4 between Herbert and Brotner. He wants in on this, but I think he's very keen to wait and see how he can potentially gain 2 places for the price of 1 as they make the way down towards turn number 7. Onto the brakes they go, and Strand just not want to get too close as Herbert goes a bit deep. They rejoins, and as you can see Brotner around the outside, and Strand tries to do the same as they make the way into turn number 9, but Strand is going to be side by side. Herbert contact with them, and Herbert sent to the barrier, and goodness me, it's gone wrong there for Aaron Herbert, and well, not a nice moment for the BMW driver. And Matt Strand, well, he's gained the place, but I wonder how much damage he may have with the car, and just a little bit of contact in the end, and you could see the two paths of the cars when in it was going to come to tears between them. Strand eager to make his way around, Herbert I think just clipping the inside curb, and that will gradually force the car out to the outside, and will contact would be inevitable, but it's gone wrong for the team hard driver, and the Race Lab Esports and free car moves up to P5, but we don't know what damage is now on that car. But as he makes his way through turn number 13, meanwhile, we do look a bit further down the order, and this is Thomas Bargett, the privateer, making his way up through turn number 11 currently, and well, down to P8 in the AM class, recently being passed by James Connolly, who's taken P7 off of the Britain. And as he heads in towards the final corner, well, Bargett's coming into the pits here, and I think there might be something wrong with the car because it's going quite slowly. And I wonder if he's picked up some damage potentially that's just upsetting the car. But meanwhile, speaking of pit stops, only moments to go as James Conley comes down, here is Håkon Grebstad. He's coming early. We've also got a couple more drivers making pit stops here around the 20-minute mark, in fact the 19-minute mark we should say. But Grebstad parked up, and I wonder if he's trying to go for a colossal undercut here. But we have typically seen the overcut is the strongest strategy. As he now leaves the pit lane, we'll have to wait and see how this plays out in practice. Meanwhile, whilst all this has been playing out, we have had Steinar Sani take the lead of the AM class off of what is Jack Wyborn, and we will try and get a replay of how that happened very shortly. And in fact, the replay is coming up, and here it is. It happened on lap number 10. As they made the way into turn number 5, Wyborn left the door open. Sani leapt into the gap there and will send it from very far back. I think he needed a couple of first-class stamps for that one, but he made it count. He had to rely on Wyborn to open the steering wheel up there, but that is how Steinar Sani took the lead of the AM class, and a very daring move. And then after that, well, then it all kicked off as we did see what was the old dudes in cars machine going up the inside, and well, as they made the way around Jack Wyborn, very quickly falling foul of being involved in the battles there. As then we got to see Sander Rustad looking around the outside. This is then for P2 in the AM class, and the Team Norway racing driver who had a disastrous day at Road Atlanta despite putting it on pole in the class and leading 3 times in the race. It all fell apart at the very end. The number 11 driver there making a very deft move and a bit of opportunism, I must say, and a nice bit as well. But as they make the way on around it, back to your live pictures now, you can see Røseth and Sani not too far apart, half a second between the two of them. More pit stops now starting to play out as we move towards the halfway point in this race. We've had Alex Hill come in. In fact, he's just leaving the pit lane at the moment. We've also had coming to this Brandon A and Daniel Bates from the Pro class, and we've also had in the AM class Simon Andre Livingston. So I think some drivers now quite eager to think about strategy and where they can give them some clear track time. And indeed, being caught up behind another driver here can cost you a lot of time in the long term, particularly if you spend 5 to 6 laps. But meanwhile, as they make the way on around and down towards turn number 4, we say hello to Arend Vergoe in the YouTube chat, and I hope you're doing well, Arend, and hello to you there as we do look back to where's our elite drivers now, and this is the battle for what is P2 in, well, in fact P3 in the elite class between Martin Tillin and Ryan Moles. And as they come into the turn 10 hairpin, well, Ryan Davies is 8/10 up the road, but I think the two UKSimRacing drivers will avoid battling one another where possible initially. They'll focus on the team effort to start with and then fighting over that second place spot to the end. But the key point being here, the sole McLaren MP412C on the grid today of Martin Tillin, a bit of a unicorn car as we like to refer to it, in the fact it is a car that has been superseded by multiple McLaren machines over the years, but still it lives on in the spirit of iRacing, and with its bi-turbo V8 engine, absolutely phenomenal right now. Very fast car that has to be driven on the edge, and Martin Tillin definitely doing well here in P3 as he tries to close up a bit more today and keep Moles behind him at a distance. And indeed, the rock and a hard place tonight, where he's got a Porsche in front, a Porsche behind, with McLaren in the middle of the sandwich. And as they head on through turn number 2, Paul Tillin here just causing what is a little bit of a build up behind with Moles and Tunstead as well. And I think Tunstead, now your second place pro driver, quite eager to find a way past these elite drivers if he can, because he'll want a shot at trying to take on the pro leader of Chris Kirkland, who is now almost 4 seconds ahead of him and gradually trying to clear away. But as these guys make their way through turn number 4 and down towards 5, we clear the halfway point in this race. We still do have 22.5 minutes to go, and well, with that, everybody now who's yet to pit will be thinking about when will they be coming into the pit lane. And well, we have seen drivers go as long as up to the 35th minute in the past, and this circuit, very important strategies. We see Moles getting it wrong through turn 7, Tunstead going around the outside. This is very brave from the Danishman, but he gets it done. The Peak Sim Racing driver sees the doors open, he doesn't need to be asked twice, and Moles there just with a slight misbraking into turn number 7, goes deep, but immediately going to come back. Tunstead defends, but Moles says, no, I'm coming through, you've got no question about this. Tunstead turns, but Moles is there, a bit of contact between the rear quarter panel and the rear and the front panel there of Tunstead's car, but the point being that Moles recovers, but this will push Tunstead away from chasing down Kirkland, and also it will buy Martin Tillin a couple of seconds of space to Moles. In fact, it's bought him 2 seconds in which they have to chase down Ryan Davies and really trying to hunt down his fellow UKSimRacing driver, and also give the two of them the opportunity to make it a 2-3 on the podium if they can't find a way to close down Erik Røseth as a minimum. As they make the way onwards towards lap number 15, well, meanwhile in the pit lane comes Ryan Walker. He makes his way in from P5 in the elite class, and Ryan Walker having a bit of a quiet race for Satellite Racing, but to be fair, quiet's not a bad thing, and Walker definitely going from strength to strength this season as he rolls his way to his pit box, but he's the only other driver going into the pits at the moment, and pit crew is out in force. As meanwhile we look to your AM leader Steinar Sani, who's keeping Sander Røseth at bay, but again, notice here how that gap is staying quite normal around the 7 to 8/10 mark. We have seen that gap open up a little bit over the last couple of laps, but the point being here, I think both drivers now setting into a rhythm, and I wonder when Sander Røseth is thinking more and more about potentially saving some fuel and trying to leapfrog on strategy, perhaps just trying to gain some time in the pits. And if you're able to save a little bit of fuel, you could gain a second, and that's all he would need to give himself side-by-side parity coming out the pit lane versus Sani, and that could be the difference in the run to turn number 1. But as they make their way up towards turn number 4, we see Lawrence Marshall saying, can we see some footage of Kerry Kokorin? Indeed we can, and speaking of Kerry Kokorin, currently in the pit lane as we see some drivers coming on through, and there's Kokorin currently being serviced for downforce racing car coming off the jacks, and Kokorin making the way back up to speed, and right now down to P9 in the pro class. But remember, that is going to be track position, it's not necessarily going to be strategic position, and Kokorin is battling for the effective, I believe, just outside the top 5 of the pro class as they make the way down. That is John Doble coming up behind in the AM class, the TG Motorsport driver missing the front bumper and some other parts on the front of the car, and the downforce driver of Kokorin will feel safe. In the fact now they've effectively got about 15 seconds of road ahead of them that is completely clear, and well, now they're able to push it as they've come out ahead of Rudy Witzland, as the Racing Lab Esports AM2 driver has come out to a degree behind. But as they make the way on through and up towards what is turn number 4, well, Kokorin right now very keen, I think, just to get the hammer down and see how many more places can be gained. Keep in mind that Brandon Hay in front has pitted in the pro, so has Daniel Pays, so has Darren Sharples. The first driver in the pro class up the road who's yet to appear is the P5 driver, which is Mark Johnson, and therefore Kokorin right now will be trying to chase down the Mercedes of Mark Johnson on strategy, and also the same for potentially Casper Brotner, although I think Brotner will be a little bit further up the road. So Kokorin may have an outside shot of a top 5 here, but it will require quite a charge from the number 28 driver, as meanwhile in the pit lane we have got Sander Rustad who has come on in, and this is an important pit stop for the Team Norway Racing driver for the reason that right now Rustad is going for the undercut here, and it's not normally worked out this season for drivers who've gone for an undercut unless the driver's going longer, really ends up in a bit of an instant. But meanwhile we do look to Marvin Cruz, who stays out in the long haul here in the AM class, the bike racing driver, who to be fair has definitely shown great capacity for a top 5 finish this season, and hasn't necessarily had the fortune on the side as the German driver. And he comes down towards turn number 4, trying to go very long today in the number 90, and we've seen this in the past from Cruz. He just tries to stay out longer than everybody else, or at least to the maximum possible in that 50% fuel tank, in order to gain places where others simply make mistakes, get involved in incidents, and have some traffic when they make the way out of the pit lane. And we'll have to wait and see whether for Cruz this will work out. He's let Ryan Walker go, and I think these two in different races, and Cruz very cognizant of that, very smart driver in that regard. But meanwhile, as Erik Røseth comes into the pit lane, as I look at my commentary booth window, to go on to lead this race for the first time today, and well, I think this is the first time this season we've seen it, is the other downforce racing car of Chris Kirkland. We saw Kerry Kokorin moments ago, but he is your race leader, albeit only in terms of track position, yet to come into the pits. But Kirkland here, I think you have a little bit of a grin on his face for the simple reason he'll be taking at least one lap as the leader this season overall, and that's always a great place to be. And downforce racing right now, I think will be beaming to see this car right at the front of the timing sheets, as Ryan Davis and Martin Tillin behind there, P2, P3 overall, P1, P2 in the elite class. Now they know they're up against it if they want to try and leapfrog their way back at Røseth, who has already come back out in P3 in terms of the elite class, P6 overall, and Røseth demonstrating just how much pace is in that car today for Racing Lab Esports AM. As meanwhile into the pits, and the lead of the AM class has come Steinar Sani, and we can see that a little bit of roll forward for Jack White, but he's missed his pit box slightly. Well, that's going to cost him time. But meanwhile, where is the danger man, I hear you ask? Well, here is Sander Rustad, as meanwhile Sani leaving the pit lane. Sander Rustad will be hoping that this has worked out. It is potentially going to be quite close here as they make the way down. Rustad charging on down here, and as he makes his way onwards towards what is turn number 1, where is Steinar Sani? Here is Steinar Sani. Sani is back ahead of Rustad. There's very little between them, albeit they have got between them Brandon Hay now, who has moved into what is that slot in P18. So to Sander Rustad, this has not worked out, and if anything, it's got worse for the Team Norway Racing driver, because he's got a pro between them. He'll be hoping that Hay can try and get stuck in versus Sani and cost Sani some time, given the fact that Hay is only half a second off. But as they make their way in towards turn number 4, Sander Rustad right now, I think we'll be looking at some thinking, how on earth has this happened? And as they make their way through 4 and 5, with the team principals on the radio, we're saying, don't think about it, just think about one thing, and this race is not over. And indeed, it definitely is not. If Hay does have a little bit of a mountain of a molehill versus what is Sani in terms of trying to get on through, because at the same time Brandon Hay wants to go hunting after Daniel Pays, who is only respectively up the road from him at 2 seconds up the road, and that's going to be the battle for P6 in the pro class that he'll be trying to hunt down. And Rustad could potentially get involved in this. But meanwhile, as Martin Tillin makes his way out the pit lane, Erik Røseth will retake P2 elite class off camera, and well, we do have Chris Kirkland making his way out the pit. Now he's got Martin Tillin right behind. Tillin has closed up to the back of Kirkland through strategy, but as they make their way into the braking zone here, well, Kirkland right now will be trying to hold on, and his goal, I think, is to try and take an overall podium here today. Remember, your race leader currently is Ryan Davies overall. As we show you the overall standings on the left-hand side of your screen, that's the top 35 overall, but Chris Kirkland right now eager to become the first pro this season to take an overall podium. We have yet to see it happen this season, and I think it has been the best part of 4 seasons since we have seen it happen in the UKSimRacing GT3 League. It doesn't regularly happen, but Kirkland is trying to make it a possibility, and Tillin right now will feel as though being stuck behind Kirkland is only going to mean one thing, and when you guessed it, ladies and gentlemen, this man is going to catch up, and Ryan Moulton, Protect Motorsport, we're definitely thinking about trying to get involved and getting into the fight for what is there, the final podium spot, or in fact it could be even the second podium spot of the elite class. But again, it depends on where Ryan Davies comes out once he's served his pit stop. And Davies right now, I think they'll be on the radio to him at Tiki Simsport to say to him, look, you've got to be aware of the fact you could be coming out alongside Kirtland and Tillin, and this could end up in a very tricky four-way fight for effective P3 overall. But as Ryan Molzig tries to close up a little bit going through the turn 10 hairpin, we'll just stay in arm's reach at the moment. Everybody now just trying to feather their way back up to temperature here. And the fact when you're stationed in the pit lane, you do lose some tyre temperature, and also any new tyres you put on the car, they need to be brought up to temperature. It takes about 2 to 3 laps to do so. And when if the left-hand side tyres have been replaced, but the right-hand side tyres are still the ones that you're originally on, you have a very warm right-hand side of the car, which means through left-hand corners the car grips up, but through what is right-hand corners, suddenly the car just has no grip at all, and that can make the car quite unstable. But Ryan Davies leaves the pit lane and he emerges P2, and Ryan Davies has nailed this on strategy, and I think Chris Kirtland coming out ahead of Tilling has been the delta here, as you see them making their way through the pitch, and Kirkland right now fighting for an overall podium here, P3, and the pro leader, well, I think at the end of the day he'll be told if the batting starts to get a bit too intense, just forgo the overall podium and take the pro win for the major points here today. It'll be worth 40 points in the pro championship. Remember, there's no points available for overall finishing position. It all comes down to what is a class-based finishing position. But meanwhile, whilst all this is playing out, we have had a jump up through the field, and we'll see when Andre Livingston has leapt into the lead of the AM class. What's been focused up the front, he's found a way on strategy to make things work. And we're just trying to understand how he's made this count, in the fact that Steinar Sani is right behind him. Simon Andre, in fact, having a much shorter stop by comparison. A whole second less than Steinar Sani, a whole 2.5 seconds less than Sander Røseth. So right now, the RaceLab Esports AM driver ahead of his fellow RaceLab Esports AM driver. And as they make the way towards turn number 4, it could be a 1-2 for the team in the AM class here, but I wonder which of them will want the win more, given the fact that both of them now have a win to their name, and they both want to become double winners, and neither one wants to be in the shadow of the other, albeit it's a great atmosphere at the Norwegian team, it must be said. But I think both of them will be looking at this and thinking to themselves, okay, which of others is it going to be? And I wouldn't be surprised if the team manager says, well, keep it clean, guys, but you have permission to race at the end of the race. But as they head up towards turn at number 9, they're caught up behind Daniel Page, and well, meanwhile, Sander Røseth is a whole 2 seconds behind this. So right now, the Team Norway Racing driver, I think he'll be a bit shocked to see he's dropped to P3 in the AM class, but he's still got time to go as we bring you back to those class standings on the left-hand side of your picture. As he charges on down, he's also got to be aware of the fact he does have Stuart Pearson getting close, and Pearson right now, as he makes his way through turn number 10, we ride on board with the Slow and Steady Racing driver and looking for his first top 5 of the season and potentially his first podium with it. And with the number 88 driver, well, we saw how good he was in qualifying, a very good qualifying, that's been well inside that top 5, and as he makes his way into turn 12 here, knowing that a podium is literally right in front of him, he's just got to reach out and take it. But coming down for turn number 13 and getting close and overtaking are 2 entirely separate things here at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, and Pearson will know that, much like every other driver on this grid, as they make their way down towards turn at number 1, or as the late Murray Walker used to say, catching is one thing, passing is another. And as they head down towards turn 1, the BMW gaining a huge amount of speed there in the toe, onto the brakes it goes. But again, just the difference there under entry, and the fact that BMW a bit more conservative on the brakes, but Røseth really making a ham sandwich out of the first couple of corners. You can see the car dancing wide there, and as Pearson closed up behind the Pokemon-sponsored machine, weighing up towards turn at number 4 now, charging the way on in, and Pearson here looking around the outside, gets very close on the brake in there, and has to catch the car in time, and I think Røseth just braking a little bit earlier than what Pearson expected, but goes wrong as a result. And as they come out the corner, Pearson having to fight the car with oversteer as he gets the power down. I think Pearson right now thinking, okay, I've got to get this move done because I've got more pace in the car. Røseth goes a bit deep as a result. These two right now are running on the ragged edge, and as they head out towards turn number 7, will Pearson have a very near miss and just caught out by Røseth taking an earlier braking point than what he'd be used to. And as they head in towards turn number 9, well, this battle definitely now heating up, as also track temperature starting to rise at the circuit. And we'll to put you in perspective, that track temperature, as we can see it now, up to 19 degrees centigrade, a little bit further up. But as they make their way to the braking zone in for turn 10, it's going to be Pearson on the inside versus what is Røseth. A dive to the inside, but Pearson knows he's got to get it done. He does, not without contact, but Stuart Pearson moves up into the podium place of the AM class, and now he's just got to hold on for his best result of the season by far as they make their way on towards turn 12. But can Sander Røseth come back? Mark Johnson's closing up to this, and the pro driver Joe right now looking at this and thinking that he wants to try and gain a couple more places, given that Brandon Hay is only 5 seconds up the road, and Hay in P6 is struggling a little bit in terms of pace at the moment, but Johnson as well not pushing on too rapidly. But as we look from them back to the battle here for P2, this is Kirkland versus Ryan Davies, and in fact Ryan Davies has fallen off a cliff in terms of pace over the last couple of laps since his outlap, and Kirkland, with regards to the warmer tyres, has moved up into P2 overall. He is your pro leader, but it should be pointed out that right now for Kirkland he is P2 overall, and the last time we saw this from Chris Kirkland, we have to cast your mind back to round number 3 at Motorland Aragon, where he was fighting for what was the overall top 5 and the overall podium. It didn't come about then, but right now he's definitely trying to make it happen today as he comes on through at turn number 11, and we'll take a look back very shortly at how the pass was made, and here is the replay. We all started coming out of turn number 4 down to 5 and onto the brakes. Kirkland went door open there. I think Dave was expecting Kirkland just not to fight, but Kirkland having other ideas as they made the way up the corner side by side down through 6, and Kirkland up the inside into turn 7. And well, the 1-1-2 today, the American for Downforce Racing absolutely on all cylinders here, firing up as the flat 6 of that Porsche definitely singing to the tune. And as he makes his way on these live pitches here through turns 1 and 2, well, he's now pushed Ryan Davies, Martin Zinn and Ryan Moles together. And well, this is the battle for P2 in the elite class, P3 overall, as Erik Røseth has just set the fastest lap of the race, a 40.87. He's the only driver lapping in the 40s, everybody else in the 41s or the 42s. And well, Røseth right now doing something very special at the front of the field, but we're also witnessing something very special here just off of the very lead of the field, as meanwhile Davies now trying to cling on here to P2. I think Tillin will give him all the space and time of day. It's the two TeamSport Kimi teammates here, and I think if needed they may consider a swap because of Ryan Moles being a threat from P4 behind, but they'll have to try and figure this out with what is 8 minutes to go plus the final lap of this race as they head up towards when it's turn number 9. And right now Tillin inching closer and closer here as we ride on board with the McLaren MP4 12C driver. And well, what does he do in the number 91? He knows that Moles is 3.5 tenths behind. I think Moles, if he gets close enough, will also think about a potential move. And under braking there into turn number 10, and Tillin very close, practically on the rear bumper of Davies. And this is a horrible place to be when you're two teammates here, particularly for Tillin, because it's almost as if you're minded by two places. You want to get a move on naturally because of the fact you feel that you're the faster driver, and therefore you don't want the pressure of the driver behind, but at the same time you don't want to take your teammate out of the race, and you don't want to compromise your teammate because the team result is just a critical. Remember, there is a team championship in this series, and right now TeamSport Kimi was some of the best points out there in the team's championship, battling for the top. And as they make their way down to turn 1, they do not want to cost each other time. But the one thing Tillin does have to his advantage, if he wants to play the team game here, is that the McLaren is very strong on acceleration up to 5th gear compared to the Porsche. He could start to act a bit of a rolling roadblock for Ryan Moles, but I do wonder where we might see it, Davies and Tillin switch before this race is over. As we look from them to a bit further down the order, we look back to your leaders in the AM class. This is Simon Andre Livingston racing up Esports AM. Behind him is Steinar Sani for racing up Esports AM2. So the sister team's drivers here battling 1-2, both looking for the right to become the first double winner in the AM class this season as they make their way down towards turn number 1. As they charge their way on down, well, as they come into the braking zone here, they do still have what is a bit further back Brandon Hayne in front of them. Immediately is Daniel Pace. And Pace right now, I think, really being reeled in here by the two AM drivers and feeling a little bit of pressure potentially. But I think Livingston will play this smart. I don't think he'll want to really force Pace into a battle if he can help it, as they make their way up towards turn number 4. And well, Pace and Livingston, they do get along outside of the circuit and on circuit. They haven't really battled too much over the course of the season given their opposing classes. But meanwhile, as they make their way up towards turn number 4, Livingston here just managing the gap versus Sani as they roll their way into the hairpin. Looking from them to a bit further back, here is Richard Jones, the other Slow and Steady racing machine, the number 99 car, and whereas the 88 right now on course for what could be its first podium in the AM class. Jones right now battling here with Marvin Cruz, and this is for P20 overall. He takes the place on the inside. Cruz not fighting it too hard, respecting that the pro driver is trying to make haste and headway through, and therefore Jones up another position. His next target is Mark Johnson who is 7 seconds up the road. Sparks flying there as he does bottom out the car on the sausage curb. And in terms of that gap to Mark Johnson, it is a 7-second gap that we briefly lose Richard Jones, and he rematerialises from the ether. Well, the lap times right now are in the favour of Jones, who is gaining on average 2 to 3 tenths a lap, but he hasn't got that much time to try and make this count. But meanwhile, looking from them, here's Ryan Davies and Martin Tillin into turn 4. Tillin on the inside, they're getting very close this time. They're too wide off the corner, and as they come up towards turn number 5, well, Davies will defend here. Well, in fact, he comes back onto the race line. I think Tillin trying to scratch an itch, which he wants that P2 in the elite class now, and Moles is putting some more pressure on as they come down towards turn number 7. And well, we ride on board the back in the rear of the 85 team Simsport Jimmy Carr. The two teammates right now having to manage this one very carefully with 4.5 minutes plus the final lap to go. We are on lap 24 currently, and we are predicted to get another 2 laps in, and before this race is said and done, the race leader Erik Røseth is 11 seconds up the road and still growing. He's just run off into the distance with this, but as we continue to look at this battle for P2 in the elite class, it's a thriller, and keep in mind in front of them is your pro leader Chris Kirtland, who's on course to become the runner-up overall today and be the highest we've ever seen a pro finish in the UKSimRacing GT3 League's history when we've been under the elite pro and AM class banners. But as we look down towards turn number 12 now from the back of Davies' car, more right now it's going to be Tilly who just waits at 3.5 tenths off. Moles 3.5 tenths off as well as the drive exit out. Tilly almost going to the gravel, then Moles following him, and that dirty air once again making itself felt as they go on to lap number 25. Coming on down, meanwhile, a bit further back is Alex Hill, the Tiki Simsport 276 driver on his debut for this season. P5 in the elite class, P6 overall. He won't be too upset with that. I think he'll be happy for his first time on the grid this season. He'll be taking the top 5 in the class, and knowing that there's plenty more to come as time goes on, as he makes his way through turn at number 3. I think he'll be looking ahead of him and thinking what's going to happen before this is all said and done with regards to his fellow teammates up the road. We'll have to wait and see. But meanwhile, Simon Andre Livingston and Stein Arsani getting very close here as they make their way onto another lap. Well, this is your AM lead battle between the two sister teams from Racing Lab Esports AM. And we'll nose to tail here. Does Sani think about it? He's within 1.5 tenths. He backs off there before the braking zone. Lift off the throttle, just lets the car separate. And I think if anything, he might go for it on the last lap, but they're not going to fight until they're right at the end of the race. But meanwhile, speaking of fight and showing the fight's not left him, Richard Jones, here he is for Slow and Steady Racing, as he's all over the back of Sander Rustad, and even more so there, he's still looking for what is P7 in the pro class, and why he's the focus of our attention, he's just set the fastest pro lap, a 41.12, a phenomenal lap as he goes up the inside of Sander Rustad there, through turn 3 and into 4, and he's going to try and make this count, albeit it'll be a battle on the brakes here. Rustad on the right of your picture, but in the end I think he will be backing off on the throttle, and meanwhile Mark Johnson there gaining the place of Stuart Pearson. But as we see some pros interchanging with AMs and gaining places, meanwhile we have had a change of P3 position in the pro class, and it's Matt Strand now who's moved up into P3, and this is how it happened versus Casper Brotner. As they made the way down into turn 5, hairpin Strand on the inside there, Brotner on the deep on the outside, and well, Håkon Grebstad then looking for an opportunity to come on through. So Strand really opened up the door, and we can see that Brotner just giving way, and well, the old dudes in cars driver there, very unfortunate to have a two-way pass made, and that may just dispel his opportunity to come back for all said and done. But we return to those live pictures of the battle for P3 Pro Class, and we can see here that now it's going to be Grebstad up the inside of Strand down towards turn 1. He'll gain overall position as a lead driver, the point being that now Brotner may be able to come back before this race is said and done. We are on to our 26th lap, and our race leader is currently heading up towards turn number 9. I think we will get one more lap before this is done, but meanwhile that's Ryan Moles. He's gone right on the inside of Davies there into turn number 5, whilst we've been looking further down the order, and Alex Hill now all over the back of Davies, and well, I think something has triggered that off, but the point being that Ryan Davies has been passed by both Martin Tillin and also Ryan Moles, and this is how it happened. Well, for Martin Tillin, it was a charge down towards turn number 1, trying to make this as signposted as possible. I think not to cost the pair of them time, and they're taking a very tight line initially, but then returning as close as possible to the race line. But Tillin offline, and that made him go a bit deep. And at this point, well, we did see what was a bit of a offline from Tinning until we got back to turn number 3, but even so that would have cost him momentum, and as they made the way up towards turn number 4, we then do ride on board with Ryan Moles, and well, Moles then get himself set up for the run out of turn 4, knows the tower here as they came on front. I think Tinning there trying to get Davies to back Moles off in terms of Moles just losing some momentum, but Moles I think saying, right, I've had enough of this, sees the doors open and gets a very nice late apex there, and in fact it's Davies who makes a slight mistake. He just overextends the corner, and Moles didn't need an excuse to do that twice. But as we return to live pictures now, we look at Alex Hill, who is still behind, as we have got a 27th lap of racing here today, ladies and gentlemen. Our leaders have gone onto it, so therefore we are now on the final lap, and if our drivers are not on it, they will be very shortly. And well, meanwhile, we do look back to that battle for P3 in the Pro class, and this is Strand versus Brotner as they come onto their final lap. Onto the brakes they go, 3 attempts between them, but there's nothing else in it right now. It's Porsche on Porsche here, and Brotner getting the faster run for the opening chicane. As they weave and wind their way through turn at number 3, I think Brotner will be quite eager to try and find a way to get the move done, but as he heads on down towards turn number 4, no way through at the moment. And what we see there from Stephen Park Hamilton saying gutted isn't a strong enough word for the stream chat, and well, I'm not taking favourites here, Stephen, but I'm with you on that. I think we'd all agree in the chat right now, seeing you put it on pole and then for it to all go wrong on lap number 1, it is heartbreaking once again. And well, meanwhile, James Conley here up the inside for P5 on Marvin Cruz in the AM class. He makes a quick deft move, but we have to quickly move away back to the front of the field, ladies and gentlemen, for as he makes his way through the final corner, it's going to be another win to his name. Erik Røseth has dominated this race and takes victory by 11.5 seconds in the end over the rest of the field in the elite class and overall. But then history is made here. It is going to be the runner-up overall and your pro winner, Chris Kirkland, for Downforce Racing. A phenomenal drive with Martin Tinning P2 for the elite class, had a Ryan Moles P3 elite, P4 overall, as we see Moles making his way on down. Ryan Davies will be P5 there overall for what is the elite, for the overall category, and P4 for what is the elite class at Alex Hill. Casper Tunstead will be the runner-up in the pro class, and that will be the best part of 21 seconds to get the third place finish of Matt Strand. Ryan Walker P6 in the elite class ahead of Håkon Grebstad, who crosses the line there, P7 elite and P9 overall. And then we will have Matt Strand come on through to round off the pro podium and the top 10 ahead of Casper Brotner, who just missed out. Daniel Page will then very shortly come on through to take what will be, for him, in fact, it'll be Reece Saunders first, who takes P12 ahead of Daniel Page. And then behind them, it'll be Simon Andre Livingston, who leads home a 1-2 in the AM class for Racing Lab Esports AM and AM2. Livingston ahead of Sunny to the line. It'll then be Brandon Hay, who crosses the line at P6 Pro, P16 overall, ahead of Mark Johnson. And then it'll be Stuart Pearson as he crosses the line side by side with his fellow slow and steady racing driver in the pro class there of Richard Jones. Stuart Pearson finally, at the 6th time of trying, and notches his first top 5 and with his first podium in the AM class this season, P18. Jones there finishing just behind him, and then James Conley missing out on what was the AM podium save, recovering to P4 in passing Sander Rundstad and Marvin Cruz on the last lap, with Rundstad running out of fuel. And we'll believe with that, ladies and gents, we've had all of our drivers now finish the race, whether on the lead lap or a lap down. But well, for Simon Andre Livingston today, as he makes his way around side by side with Steinar Sadie, I think the two of them there saying, I'll have this one, or at least Simon Andre will be saying that, and I think Sandy was saying, but I'm getting the next one. Indeed, their rivalry definitely continuing in terms of the little battle between the two teammates, but a great race from them, and also from Erik Røseth here, absolutely worlds apart in qualifying. 6 tenths was the difference between him and the field on pole, and will in the end, after what was a perfect start to the race, and was put 5 tenths between himself and the field in the run to turn 1. In the end, Røseth did not look back, he only looked forward. But as he makes his way on down, also a special mention to Stuart Pearson at once more, the slow and steady racing driver, finding his way to take his first podium of the season. And it has not been an easy season, it must be admitted, for the slow and steady racing driver, but it has been a season of special moments so far, and Stuart Pearson adding his name to that special moment list there for the number 88 BMW M4. But with our race complete, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries, and here they are. And we start off with the overall category as always, and as we can see, Erik Røseth taking the win for Racing Lab Esports AM by just shy of 10 seconds the end over Chris Kirkland, who makes history in becoming I do believe the first non-top class driver, so in this case the first pro driver, to take an overall podium in the UK Sim Racing GT3 League career, and indeed it is a P2 overall and also the pro win for the Downforce Racing driver. Behind him by a second, Martin Tinney rounds off the overall podium for Tiki Simsport Kimi, and with that second place in the elite class, and then Ryan Moles missing out on the overall podium, but for ProTech Motorsport he doesn't miss out on the elite podium there, third place in class, and a deserved third place in the end, having to really fight his way through. Ryan, there is P5 overall for Tiki Simsport Kimi, just falling away at the end of the race. Unfortunate today. He was hoping to make it a 2-3 podium in terms of overall and also in the elite class with teammate Tilling, but still plenty of rounds to come. And then Alex Hill on his debut for this season for Tiki Simsport there, only a further 5 attempts behind ahead of Casper Tunstead, with the Peak Sim Racing driver being your runner-up in the pro class. He may have taken pole, but it didn't quite work out in the end of the race. Kirkland's pace a little bit too strong, but the Peak Sim Racing driver will still be happy with the points he's taken from today. And then P8, Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing, and a relatively quiet race once again, but comfortably 15 seconds clear of Håkon Grebstad, with the Ignition Motorsport driver finishing P9 ahead of Matt Strand, the pro driver who rounds off the overall top 10, and with it the pro podium of Kirkland, Tunstead and Strand. The race now by esports and free drive being followed by best of the rest in the overall category. P11 there, Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars, and then we focus on the AM podium finishers now in terms of their overall finishing positions, as we can see that P14, your AM winner of Simon Andre Livingston from Racing Lab Esports AM, ahead of the sister team AM2. His teammate Steinar Sani P15, and that's second place in the AM class. And you have to go to P18 there for the final AM podium finisher, P3 in class, Stuart Pearson for Slow and Steady Racing. And well, James Connolly there just missing out on the AM podium, P20 for UK Sim Racing Moss, and having to fight his way up through the field. And indeed for Connolly, a challenging race, but making that Ferrari 488 Evo work only how he knows. But meanwhile, looking at two of the drivers who finished on the lead lap, we can see there Thomas Barjak, the final driver to finish on the lead lap, P26 there, the privateer, and then finishing a lap down, we had Jack Wyborn, John Doble, and Simon Hartley, who completed your top 30 for Tiki Simsport Tower. And then coming on to our retirees, or drivers who finished more than one lap down, we can see that Stephen Parker Hamilton for TPA Racing finishing 8 laps down. He will be classified as a race finisher as he completed well over half the race distance, whereas the other drivers here, including Cy Anthony, Aaron Herbert, Thomas Aspau, and Peter Cox, they will be classified as non-finishers, as they did not reach the halfway distance point of what was 27 laps. But now coming on to the individual classes, we can see here Erik Røseth taking the win in the elite class by 10.7 seconds in, almost 10.8 for Racing Lab Esports AM over Martin Tinnen for Tiki Simsport Kimi, and then Ryan Moles round off the podium there for ProTech Motorsport. And it definitely could have some favour inside the top 5 battle in the elite championship with all these drivers in terms of Tillen, Moles and Davies just behind, all squabbling for the right to be the runner-up if Røseth carries on this pace and continues to break away. Davies P4 ahead of Alex Hill, and then Ryan Walker P6 there in, as we said earlier, an uneventful race for the Satellite Racing driver, but he'll be happy that he's been the fastest BMW there ahead of Håkon Grebstad for Ignition Motorsport, with the third 10 seconds to Reece Saunders, who battled his way all the way from the back of the field to finish P8 in class for Team Year 1. And then we had our retirees, Cy Anthony, Thomas Aspau and Peter Cox. And then coming on to what is the pro class, here we can see the confirmation of your winner, Chris Kirkland for Downforce Racing, taking the win in the end by 7.3 seconds over Peak Sim Racing's Casper Tunstead. And well, that gap there, 7.3 seconds, really does go to show how close they were on relative race pace, albeit Kirkland had to battle his way into that P2 spot overall. And I think that really will have stunted a little bit of his performance, but still, Tunstead will take inspiration from the fact of P2 today. And well, it's a great result with that and some huge points coming his way. Matt Strand P3 for Racing Lab Esports and 3. In another podium finish there for the 69 driver, and he was at the line 2 tenths clear. Casper Brotner, the Old Dudes in Cars driver, missed out on the podium, as did his teammate Daniel Page, who finished P5, but they'll both take positives in the fact that they did finish inside the top 5 and huge points in the team's championship for the ODIC team. And then we see P6 Brandon Hay for Newbridge Esports, a second ahead of Mark Johnson for UK Sim Racing Clark, with Richard Jones there, P8 for Slow and Steady Racing, and then completing your top 10, Kerry Kokorin for Downforce Racing and Darren Sharples for UK Sim Racing Price. Finishing a lap down, Rudy Witzland for Racing Lab Esports AM2 in a difficult day today, being involved in that open lap incident at turn number 6, and Aaron Herbert, our sole retiree after that nasty incident going through turn number 9 and what was effectively 11 laps into the race. But for the Team Hard driver, we expect to see him back on the grid next round, and we look forward to seeing him out there looking to try and recover from today. And then we come on to the AM class, last but not least, and Simon Andre Livingston, the Racing Lab Esports AM driver, taking the win in the end over his sister team driver from AM2 of Steinar Sani, only 2.5 tenths between the two of them at the line. Stuart Pearson P3, a further 11 seconds back there for Slow and Steady Racing, notching his first podium of the season, and Stephen Andre Livingston becoming our first double winner in the AM class, unless I'm mistaken. And meanwhile, James Connie P4 there for UKSimRacing Moss, once again having to battle his way through and taking a P4 that he's earned the hard way. Team Norway Racing Sander Rushto P5 there, falling off the pace towards the end after looking to be on course to threaten for the win at the midpoint of the race, but the strategy plus also the pace just did not quite work out, and he just finished 4 attempts ahead of Marvin Cruz of Bike Racing, who continues to chase after another top 5. He's only picked up 1 this season, and then Neil Smith P7 for Disaster Prone Racing, who finished the best part of 6 seconds ahead of Tom Barjak, who completed the run to P8, and all the drivers in the AM class who finished on the lead lap. Finishing a lap down, Jack Wybon for TPA Racing ahead of John Dole for Tiki Simsport Kimmy and Tiki Simsport Tires Simon Hartley. And then Stephen Parker Hamilton, your sole retiree in the AM class, but classified as a finisher as he completed half the race distance or more, and he'll be taking P12 there for TPA Racing. That concludes all of our racing for today, ladies and gentlemen. And, well, we're not quite done with the broadcast today, because coming up shortly will be your post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers, and where it's definitely been a fast and furious race today under the early morning Spanish sunshine. But what did our drivers have to think about it? We'll be back in approximately 12 to 15 minutes to find out more. We'll see you then. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to kick off our post-round interviews. And today, we're going to be hearing from a variety of drivers up and down the grid, and indeed some drivers who've taken special mentions today. We first hearing from TU Simsport Kimmy's Martin Tillin, our sole McLaren MP412C on the grid, who battled hard to finish second place in the elite class and third place overall today. We'll then be hearing from fellow elite driver Ryan Moles from ProTech Motorsport, who fought his way up onto the elite podium, but particularly right to the end with some deft moves. And then we'll be hearing from our AM winner, Simon Andre Livingston from Racing Lab Esports AM, who becomes our first double winner in the AM class for this season, with a win that will definitely put him right on course in the championship. And then lastly, we're saving arguably the best for last, many of you would argue, and that is Downforce Racing's Chris Kirkland, the pro winner today, who also went on to make history by taking the first overall non-top class podium in the UKSimRacing GT3 League's history, as far as we're aware, since the transition to elite, pro and AM class. But without further ado, joining me in the interview room now is none other than Martin Tillin, and as he joins me, good evening to you, Martin. And well, what a tough day today, but you managed to get the McLaren onto the podium, a second place in elite class, third place overall, but it didn't look easy by any means.
It was a very tough race. I was actually pleasantly surprised by the amount of Porsches behind me today. Seeing the pace and officials this week, it was not an easy drive at all in the McLaren.
Well, given this circuit and the fact that it's quite a tenacious circuit over a single lap, plus also when you consider 45 minutes of racing, qualifying looked to go really well for yourself, putting it P4 on the overall grid, P3 in class. Is that what you expected to be in qualifying, or was it a bit of a surprise to see you that high up the order?
I was pleasantly surprised to see myself that high. I expected to be more pace from some of the other drivers. I was even more surprised to see some of the pros up there as well. Yeah, other than that, wasn't my best quality lap I've done this week, but it was a fair challenge to be up there.
And just on the quality lap around here, for the viewers at home, whilst the track temperature was quite low today, about 18 degrees centigrade when yourself and everybody was making their way around, this is a circuit that's very hard to get right over multiple qualifying laps. Just why is that exactly? Is it because of the fact the tyres get very hot fast, or it's just a circuit that naturally doesn't provide that much grip, or is there another reason?
Well, I think it's tyre preparation. Like you said, if you go too hard on your out lap, you can overheat them, and then you won't have optimum for your first flying lap. But you can also get it wrong on your first lap, just an incorrect line by a few millimeters, or in turn one, if you touch that sausage curb instead of going over the middle of it, it can completely ruin your lap. Too much throttle in turn two sends you wide. You could easily lose more time there. I think it's all about getting that perfect lap, the perfect line, knowing exactly where to do it and how to get your tyres in the window, because it can cost you big time if you get it wrong.
Well, you got it right this time around, and with that, when we did go at green flag racing, it looked to be quite a standard start in the fact not really any places gained or lost. Come the end of the first lap, still running in P4, but very quickly starting to make your way past the pro in front of you in the form of Casper Tunstead, albeit in doing so, then trying to charge your way in the battle to P2 behind was at the time one of your teammates.
Yeah, I was like I said, I was surprised to see the pros up there. Like, I didn't want to get in their way, and ruin their races at the same time. But my aim for the game today was to just stick with my teammate and work together to keep everyone else behind. But Xander dropped back at the start, which was a bit disappointing because we could have had a 3 tiki lockout at the top there. But yeah, I just didn't want to ruin the pros race. I know I had one ahead and one behind. I didn't really want to get involved with them, but it was all fair racing. It's a motor race. That's what we do. And if there's a gap and you're not going for it, you're not racing. So I took the chance.
Well, indeed, and a well-placed chance in the end, moving you up into what was P3 overall. And from that point onwards, we started to see the pace of the race slow down a little bit, with strategy becoming the key focus. Was there a change in strategy at any point in the race, or did you go with what you had planned going into tonight?
Well, my initial plan was to maybe fuel save a little bit, but looking behind me, I was more focused on what was happening behind, because I think it was Turnstead behind me, and then had Moles and Xander Hill behind him. So I was more worried about the elites getting past the pro and putting pressure on myself, whereas I can then concentrate on sticking with my teammate and keeping to his pace, and maybe saving a bit of fuel and tyres, because this track is horrendous for tyre wear.
And just with regards to that tyre wear, where's it felt most? Is it on the left side tyres per chance, given it's a clockwise circuit?
Yeah, the front left takes a lot of beating. There's a lot of long swooping lefters around here, so it's really takes a beating on that front left.
Well, having to manage the tyres being a pivotal part from today, but of course tyre changes available in the pit lane. But when you emerged out of the pit, then found yourself battling for second place in the elite class, albeit behind your teammate Ryan Davies, and it looked as though at first the two of you were holding P2, P3, but in the closing laps things started to change.
Yeah, I didn't know it at the time, but my teammate didn't take tyres in this pit, whereas I took both my left sides, so I had a bit more of an advantage over the lap. We came out, I think Ryan Moles pitted a lap earlier. He was 2 seconds back when he pitted, and he came out only a half a second behind, so we actually had the pressure of him behind and me nagging my teammate to go faster. So apologies to Ryan Davies for that, because I think I annoyed him a little bit, nagging him to go faster. But yeah, with Moles behind, he was putting the pressure on. I didn't want to, get in the way of my teammate or kill my teammate. So I think in the end it was a mistake in the second to last where I had to put myself past him, because it was going to cost us both if I didn't.
Or indeed understand, when we were talking about the time, it's a very difficult situation when you're behind your teammate. You don't want to scupper their race, of course, given the team's championship, but also you've got the pace to move forward. But it looked as though quite a smart overtake from yourself going down to turn one, and perhaps a very signposted overtake to make it a safe one. And after that, we did see things relatively settle down for yourself in the closing laps. Was there any possibility that you might have been able to hunt down Chris Kirkland?
It was tough. He had really good pace. I'm not sure if he took tyres in his pits. I had definitely had some good pace in the last couple of laps. I was pushing to try and catch him, but I don't think overall I had the overall pace to catch him, because the Porsche is so fast in the corners. Even with my straight line speed in the Macca, I was really struggling to catch him.
Was a difficult chase in the end, not quite able to make it come about, but still a P3 overall and a second place in class, providing you with some great points going into our next round. And well, today definitely has been a testing round and the last of our sprints in succession. And next week we look ahead to our first endurance race of the season at the Le Mans circuit in France. How are you feeling to the visit to the circuit that recently celebrated its centenary?
It'd be interesting to know what my straight line speed is going to be. I know the Macca's got a pretty decent toe on it compared to the other cars. I've heard the Porsche's probably going to struggle there, being a slightly lower top speed on the Porsches. It could be a very interesting battle, and I think the BMW will be quick there. So I think we can have a whole different battle at the top compared to this week. Being the Porsche strong here, it could be the BMW at the front next week. So it could be a whole different battle next week. But it'll be very interesting. It's not my strongest track, but I feel the McLaren's got a little bit of strength behind it this coming week. So I hope I can do what I can.
We do look forward to seeing what you're able to do at Le Mans in a week's time, and whether we can see the McLaren go for glory at the very front of the field. But just before we do let you go, Martin, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a special mention to today live on the broadcast?
Yeah, UKSimRacing for their great racing, clean racing as always. To yourself for a fantastic stream. And I apologise again to my teammate Ryan Davies for nagging in the whole race to go faster. But other than that, Tiki Sin Sports, I thank you all for the great racing.
Well, Martin, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in at the interview room. Congratulations once again on your run to P2 in the elite class today and third place overall. Fantastic to see the McLaren right up there in your very capable hands, and we look forward to seeing plenty more from yourself at Le Mans in a week's time. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you again for a great stream, and I'll see you next week.
All the best. So hearing there from Martin Tillin, the McLaren driver who absolutely made the elite class McLaren work today, in the fact putting it on what was the second row of the grid in qualifying, albeit missing out potentially on what could have been the front row by a couple of hundredths. But the point being surprised there by the fact he was on such form and pace in qualifying. He was able to turn things around very quickly and move forward into the race, knowing that it was a great opportunity to be on the podium. Albeit after what was a little bit of an intense start, he did talk to us about the fact he didn't really want to interrupt the pro class race, but also what was at the same time eager to push forward on the elite class race. Soon found himself running in what would be the battle for P2 in the elite class behind his teammate Ryan Davies, and the two of them working together for that key conundrum there which separated the two of them. Davies not choosing to change tyres in the pits, meanwhile Tilling opting to change tyres, and in the end that came back to haunt Davies and almost haunted Tilling, who had to try and make the move right towards the end of the race, which would lead him on to P2 in the class. So a missed opportunity for what was a 2-3 on the elite podium for TQ SimSport Kimi today, but the flip side of the coin being for them that Tilling was able to extract a key result, and well, with this result in hand, we're now going to the Le Mans, and in his own words there, feeling as though it could be an even closer fight at the front of the field, and perhaps the Porsches won't have a top end speed compared to say the McLaren and the BMW M4 to take the fight for the win, but you can definitely be reassured that Tilling will be there, if he can be, to try and go for glory. But as we now come on to our second interview of today, we'll be very shortly hearing from Ryan Moles, who battled to the third and final spot of what was the elite podium as he gets ready to join me. Well, it's going to be interesting to hear his perspective on what was a bit of a different race and having to fight his way onto the podium right at the end, given the fact he found himself for a very long time caught behind the TQ SimSport Kimi pair. But as he joins me now in the interview room, good evening to you, Ryan. And well, it was a hard-fought race, but in the end, you managed to snatch the podium away on the last couple of laps. Looks like you're having fun in the ProTech Motorsport Porsche.
Yeah, hi Paul. It was decent today. You know, after the last few weeks, well, the last few rounds racing's not been the greatest for me, but yeah, today I managed to surprise myself with the pace a little bit as well. But yeah, no, it was good. It was good fun. Good to be back at the top end of the table again. But yeah, no, it was fun.
And indeed, it all started in qualifying with what was a P7 on the grid, a P5 in class. Looked as though qualifying perhaps left a little bit on the table. How do you feel your session went personally?
Well, I messed up the first 2 laps. Got a 1X on turn 1, actually, both times. So I kind of had to like go back to pits, refuel the car, and then I was very limited on time then to try and get the remaining 2 laps in. So I think I got in my own head a little bit. So I was kind of like being safe on the first lap. And then on the second lap, I tried pushing and I wasn't really finding much time. So there was time there, but I don't think it would have gained me many more positions, especially with Erik's insane pace. It's just no one's going to be able to catch up to him at all this season. But overall, I was happy that I was at the top end, but there was definitely room for more.
With that in mind, we have seen that the Porsche has gone very well here at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya today, and it's been a strong car all season, and you made those strengths really come about in the early stage of the race, quickly finding your way on past Alex Hill on the opening lap, and then soon trying to chase down the pair from TQ SimSport Kimi of both Martin Tilling and Ryan Davies. But in between you and them, there was a pro in the form of Casper Tunstead. It looks like you had to work hard to find your way past the pro, let alone get in the battle with the elites.
Yeah, Casper had a really good pace. I think it was only until he made a mistake that I got past him. But earlier on, yeah, I kind of just wanted to sit behind Alex because in the build-up to the race, it looked like he had decent pace. I was happy to sit behind, save some fuel. But early on, I felt like I had more pace, so I made the move on him. And then I quickly got up to Casper and Martin. And then, yeah, it was a hard struggle then to try and close that gap because they had like really strong pace. And then, yeah, like I said, when Casper made that mistake, I thought I had too good of a run to not go for the move. So, yeah, and then it would kind of just single foul then till the end, pretty much, nearly.
And I have to ask, running close behind other cars around here, we hear a lot about Formula 1 drivers complaining about the dirty air at the Barcelona-Catalunya circuit. How did it feel in the GT3 class machine, given the fact that Porsche does have a lot of cornering capability, but I imagine that the aerodynamics in the car do help with that somewhat?
Yeah, no, it was horrible running in the dirt, yeah, especially when I was sat behind Martin for so long. I kind of got a little bit angry at myself because I was making a lot of mistakes down to that. And I think that's made that worse. But then, yeah, I kind of made that choice then to try and pit a lap early to get some fresh air, make use of the tyres than what I took in the pits. I also took both lefts. And it did work. I kind of wish that I pitted a little bit earlier to maybe then try and make use of that cleaner air, because I might have been able to undercut them both. But yeah, it was all right.
Still, you may not have been able to undercut them both through strategy, but we got to see you get very close in the late stages of the race. And, well, it looked over some time it was going to be a three-way fight for that second place spot on the elite podium, with yourself training behind Tilling and Davies. With Tilling finding a way through, you didn't waste time and then looking for a way through on your own, albeit you had to be bold going into the turn 5 hairpin.
Yeah, I saw that they were starting to battle and get close to each other. I was completely unaware that they were teammates. So when I saw the chance, I thought I need to go for it. I think that was again on Casper. That was when I made a mistake. But then, yeah, I was just struggling to close that gap to Martin, to make use of it. And then I can't remember if it was his teammate who made the mistake in front of him. Managed to slip behind through him that gap. But yeah, I mean, I was happy with the overall result. Martin had great pace. It would have took a lot to close that gap and make a move as well. So.
Well, still a content result in the form of P3 in class, P4 overall, I should say, and coming at a key time as well, as now the tone shifts from sprint races to our first endurance race of the season next week at the Circuit de 24 du Mans. How are you feeling for the legendary French circuit?
I'm not too sure yet, because I am going to be doing the 24-hour race that's there next week. So I'm not sure how much practice I'm going to get. It's a nice circuit to drive, especially in GT3 as well. The slowdowns are going to be a big problem for sure. But looking at the early signs of the lap times, the Porsche doesn't look overly great, so I am a little bit concerned. But yeah, only time will tell, and we'll have to wait and see.
Indeed, and we'll be eager to see how you can make the Porsche work at the French circuit. But just before we do let you go, Ryan, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Give a shout out to the ProTech boys, all of them not showing up this week, leaving me on my own to try and do the business. But yeah, no, they've been supportive this week. And shout out to you as well, Paul. Great broadcast as usual. And to everyone else who was on the grid today. Some really nice racing today. So, yeah, hopefully get same again this week.
Well, Ryan, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations once again on a hard-fought third-place podium in the elite class. We look forward to seeing more from you in Le Mans in a week's time. But until then, congratulations once more and have a great evening.
Thanks, Paul.
So hearing there from Ryan Moles, the ProTech Motorsport driver, he just sounds absolutely knackered, as though today has been a race which has all been about trying to fight his way through and really trying to battle through a wall of dirty air, as we see a picture of that really describing at the moment as he chases Martin Tin down the start-finish straight. It was turn number 1. And a challenging day as well in the fact qualifying perhaps not being as high as he expected, but at the same time, also in terms of trying to charge on, feeling as though it was a day where he's going to have to make those places on circuit, also pass some pro drivers who are also looking for some huge results in their own respect, but find his way after the pit stops on the back of that battle for P2 in the elite class, when they're not quite able to find a way past Martin Tilling, but was able to capitalise on the mistake made by Ryan Davies, much like he capitalised on the mistake made by Casper Tunstead before the pit stops, and that's how Ryan Moles was able to get it done. Had to be hard, had to be fast with his decision making, but sometimes you've got to get your elbows out in order to make progress, and Ryan Moles really defining that today with 2 very nice moves to make it a 3rd place on the elite class podium. But now, as we come on to our next interview very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be hearing from none other than your AM winner for today, Racing Lab Esports AM's Seaman Andre Livingston, as he gets ready to join me in the interview room. Well, we'll get to hear his thoughts on what has definitely been a day to remember, making himself the first double winner in the AM class, but also on top of that, having to battle hard with his teammate and fellow championship rival Stein Alsani. And he joins me now to Seaman Andre. Good evening to you, Seaman Andre, and what a day it has been for yourself, making yourself the first double winner in the AM class, but it wasn't easy, whether it was in qualified or the race. You had to work hard, including battling with your teammate.
Oh, I just want to say yes. Oh, that was a great race. Wow, that was fun. Yeah, finally like a double win. Kind of gutted for Steven there. He was great on the pace and he crashed out in that first crash. I managed somehow to get through that without any big damage and just continued driving and did an undercut on the guys. And when I saw that me and Steinar was coming out, when he was coming out of the pit, I was in the lead. I just went, okay, keep it calm. And it worked, yes.
Well, indeed, you sound really happy with the performance. And we'll start off with qualifying P2 in the AM class and P18 overall, missing out on AM pole by just over a tenth versus Stephen Parker Hamilton. It looked close in qualifying, but was there a bit more time out there for you in the Ferrari, or was it always going to go the way of the Porsche drivers?
Oh, Paul, the Ferrari on this track, that was a recipe for disaster. I couldn't get a feel of it to drive any faster. That lap I put down in quali was my personal best, and I felt like that was just on the edge of where my skill level is right now. That was a hard qualifying. My heart was beating out of my chest, and I was just like, okay, keep it on the track. So that he managed to go even faster for me just tells me that he had been having speed all through the season, but a lot of bad luck, I guess, and especially here. I felt like, okay, P2 today was going to be the objective, but I got it. So, yeah, what can I say?
Oh, indeed. And interesting to hear your thoughts there with regards to the status of the Ferrari at Barcelona-Catalunya. But still, it was just as much a game of survival with the car as it was trying to hold on for the win. And we're talking about the race, a relatively calm start from yourself, albeit that lap 1 instant really shaking up the field. And you very quickly found one TPA racing car in front of you being replaced with another in the form of Jack Wyborn.
Yeah, I saw that he was out there in the lead, and I was communicating with Steinar just to get like a overview of where everything was, because after that big incident, I don't know which position I was in the AM class, but yeah, I felt like, okay, I know I have pace, and just try to calmly get through the field. And when I catched up to those guys, I saw him and Steinar was battling quite hard. There was 2 other guys. I think Sander was up there, and I think it was one more. But no, it was those 3. Yeah. And when I found that Jack dropped back and was in front of me, and I didn't really feel like sending it on him without being 100% sure that the overtake would stick. So I just talked to my teammates on the radio and asked if it would be a good strategy to pit early. So when I saw that he was continuing, I just jumped into the pit stall.
Well, smart move, and going for one of the earlier pit stops in the AM class to get an undercut. And we do know that you have a tendency to save quite a lot of fuel as well when you're out of the circuit. And once the pit stops are all concluded, found yourself jumping up into the lead of the class just ahead of Steinar, and also in the end both of you dropping at Sander Rustad, who did seem to have a bit of an outside chance of what was the win today. A bit of grin crept onto your face, but then suddenly Steinar started to come back.
I didn't get the last one there, Paul. What do you say? Steinar
started to come back at you late in the race.
Yeah, I felt like I had more pace, but Daniel, who was in front of me at the time, he also had good pace, and it was some corner where I kind of went calm because I knew, like, the Ferrari, if I overcooked them there, the back tires will go. But I felt maybe like total lap time I maybe had some more in it, and when I then saw Steinar was creeping right up behind me, we just kind of made a deal that, okay, we don't try any stupid overtakes, but if he has a good shot at an overtake, I will not defend it. So we didn't like make a agreement of just sticking to the position, but we made an agreement to not drive each other off the track. But he said after the race that he didn't really feel like he had any good opportunities, but I still was quite stressed about it. because I know that he is fast and he has been practicing hard this week, and I knew he had pace, so I just had to keep my head down and just try to follow the rear of Daniel's car. In the end, I got the victory, so that felt good.
Well, indeed, it looked close, but a great feeling when you crossed the line ahead of your teammate. The two of you making it a 1-2 in the end, and it couldn't come at a more important time, as it means that you have retaken the lead of the AM Championship, provisionally going in to the next round. It's close from round to round, but now taking the lead, how are you feeling with 3 rounds to go?
Quite stressed about it. I said last week that I wasn't thinking too much of the championship, but like I said, like it's hard to not think about it, because now that it's actually a possibility, the thoughts kind of creep in your head, like, okay, you have a shot at it, don't ruin it right now. So I feel like it's both a good thing and also a little bit bad thing, because I get quite stressed out about it, but also it makes me more motivated to put down the hours in the sim rig and prepare for every race. Like this week, I think Tour Barcelona is this season's race that I have done the most in sim racing before the race, so it gives you a little bit of a motivation to just, okay, now put your head down and work for it. So I think that is the positive to take away from now having the lead in the championship.
Well, that's fair, and indeed, as this championship winds on, I can appreciate the stress that may be going through your mind. And well, speaking of stressful circuits to go racing at, a week from now, it's the first endurance round, and it's at none other than the Le Mans circuit. How are you feeling for the visit to France?
First of all, I have to see if I will manage to make it. I'm going on a holiday golf trip in Sweden this weekend, and we have like tee off at, I think it's like 10:30 on Sunday, and if I make it back to my rig, then I will race, but if I don't make it back, then I will probably not race, but I will still put in some hours to practice just in that possibility if I make it, or otherwise I just have to find any Swedish guy that owns a rig and ask him if I can borrow it or something. I don't know.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we do hope you're able to join us on circuit in a week's time, but if not, you will be sorely missed, I must say, and I think everybody in the AM class will be eagerly waiting now to see if you are able to make it. But just before we do let you go, Steve and Andre, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, first of all, I have to thank my team, Racing Lab, and all our drivers and sponsors. And again, I would like to thank you for great broadcasting, interview skills, commentating. It's a blast to watch the streams back every single Sunday, and also like watching the other series that you do. And family and friends. So I think that is all for today.
Well, Steve and Andre, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations once again on becoming our first double winner in the AM class. And well, if you're able to make it onto circuit next time, could you even go for the triple? But either way, we hope you have a great time on your trip. And well, we look forward to seeing you back on the circuit in the near future. But until then, have a fantastic evening.
You too, Paul. Good night.
So hearing there from Simon Andre Livingston, and well, what a day it has been for him today. In the fact, talking about first up, the Ferrari really has been a challenging car here at the Barcelona-Catalunya circuit. Indeed, the Ferrari, a car of a reputation for really grinding its tyres down over the course of race distance. And this circuit, having high tyre wear, well, it is a potent nightmare combination. But for our AM driver, he was able to keep it together, and the Racing Lab Esports and Ferrari able to really put the pace together in qualifying, just missing out on pole by a 10th, and then going into the race itself, having set a personal best in qualifying. Well, thinking about a P2, but the misfortune that Stephen Parker Hamilton experienced on lap number 1, and Stephen Andre having to dodge a little bit of contact going through lap number 1 as well. dropped down the order to a degree, but fought back and also used an early pit stop, went for the undercut, and the undercut paying the profit in the end, with him taking the lead of the class and only looking back when his rival and fellow teammate Stano Sani was getting closer and closer in the closing stages. But it's a key win for the number 3 driver, Simon Andre Livingston, and this could just be the very win that defines this championship when it's all said and done. But we'll have to wait and see, with 3 rounds to go, whether that truly is the case. Now, going on to our final interview for today, it's going to be none other than our pro winner and a man who has made history. It will be Chris Kirkland, and as he gets ready to join me in the interview room, we look forward to hearing from the American, and I think he's very eager to tell us how he's feeling right now as he gets ready to join me. But what a drive it's been for the Downforce Racing driver. And as I do believe he is ready, in fact he does join me now in the interview room. We say hello to you, Chris, and what a day it has been at the Barcelona-Catalunya circuit. Not only taking the class win today in the pro class, but with it making history and being our first pro driver to also notch an overall podium. You must be absolutely pleased with your drive to P2 overall today.
Yeah, it was a good day. Struggled a bit in qualifying. Didn't know if I'd have the pace or not, and haven't had much practice this week, so I'm pretty happy to be where I am today.
Well, it's interesting you say that, given the fact you had struggles in qualifying. You still managed P5 overall and a P2 in class, but what exactly were those struggles? Because I think for many tuning in, we'd say, well, it didn't look as though you were struggling out there.
Oh yeah, the track temps seemed to be pretty low, but the car just didn't feel great, and I was actually pretty surprised to run the lap time that I did. After that, I just couldn't find any more time, and then I had to restart the session and try to go for some faster times, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to find anything. But overall, pretty happy.
Well, good qualifying that, and we did see Casper Tunstead take pole in the class, and with it and making his way on towards the second row of the grid. So starting just a couple of places in front of you, did you feel as though that could have potentially been the way the race would play out before you went to the grid, or was it just reset and focus on the race as it comes?
Yeah, my real goal was to just stick with Casper and try and save some tires and fuel, and then get him at the end of the race, which turned out I didn't need to do that. So after I had made a pass on him, I just kind of, tried to have fun for the rest of the session and find out where I could end up. So, yeah.
It was a nice and early pass on it, your main rival of Casper, and then from that point onwards, you found yourself battling back and forth with the top 4 in the elite class, in particular the likes of Martin Tillin and also Ryan Moles. Were you starting to think at this point, because we saw you, if you remember, back at Motorland Aragon, chasing after a potential overall top 5, if not a podium? Was it another familiar situation you think, you know what, I could just claim an overall podium at this point?
Oh yeah. Once I made the pass on Casper and I felt pretty comfortable, I decided just to try to see how well I could do, and I was trying not to ruin anybody's race and be respectful of those guys, but I also had a bit of pace that I wanted to work with, and I wanted to chase down the leader if I could. So that was my goal after I took the top step in pro.
With respect to that, chasing down that potential podium, we saw in the end it was going to come down to close margins on strategy. Speaking of which, we're just taking a look back at the broadcast at the moment at the pit stops, and just coming out ahead of Martin Tillin by a hair's width. You must have been grinning from ear to ear when that happened.
Oh, I was actually a little bit frustrated. I came into the pit and missed my pit box, so I was glad to be out in front of him at the pit exit there. So then from there, I just tried to have a clean race and pull a little bit of time as I could. So.
Well, indeed, and it was fantastic driving from yourself all the way through in that second stint. And I have to ask, with tyre wear being so significant here today, did you potentially change your strategy? Did you always plan to opt to change tyres? Or was there a lot more of a focus potentially on managing those tyres more than perhaps you anticipated early on?
Biggest goal from the start was just to manage tires and save some fuel. So I was really just trying to stick with, let's see, it would have been, I think it was Ryan who's in front of me. So I was just trying to stick with him and save tires a bit. And I ended up not taking tires in the pit stop just to try and get out ahead of Martin, which worked out. So at the end of the race, I was struggling a little bit, but overall, tire wear was pretty well. I made some changes in the setup before the race to try and save some tires as well, and that seemed to work out really well.
Well, a very daring strategy, I must say, with not changing tyres, but it paid off in the end. And as the laps came down and the final lap came to be, you had enough of a gap to the elite drivers behind you to feel safe in P2. And just take us through that feeling coming out the final quarter to know you would be the overall runner-up today as well as the pro winner.
Oh, it was a great feeling. Yeah, I had some struggles at the beginning of the season, just trying to get up to pace with these guys and learn how to overtake with them and try to be respectful. And just coming out of the corner at the end of the race just felt great.
And well, with that, a great result as well in the fact picking up what is your second win in the pro class this season and now moving up to P8 in the pro championship with 3 rounds to go. It's been a bit of an up and down championship, but you do seem to be on the up. We've got 3 rounds remaining. Are there any in particular you're eagerly looking forward to?
Not off the top of my head. I'm just having fun at this point. I don't think a championship is in the grasp this season, so just try and stick where I am at and fight for next season.
Well, there's plenty of fight out there in future seasons, I can definitely tell, and also some this season. Speaking of which, how are you feeling for Le Mans next week with our first endurance race round? 90 minutes at the legendary circuit. Could we expect to see you on the podium once more?
I'm not sure. It's like everybody else has said, the Porsche seems to struggle for top end speed, so I'm just going to tinker with the setup a bit, see if I can find some speed, and then hopefully we'll find ourselves, at least at the front of pro class next week.
Well, Chris, we do look forward to seeing you take to Le Mans circuit in a week's time and how you get on there. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a special mention to live on the broadcast today?
Yeah, huge shout out to the guys at Downforce. We've been adding some members lately, and it's turning into a really good group. So really appreciate those guys and all the support from them. Really appreciate the stream and everything that you put on, Paul. It's great to watch every single week.
Well, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations once again on your phenomenal drive to class victory, and with it also making UKSimRacing GT3 League history with your performance to take you to the run-up spot on the overall podium. We definitely look forward to seeing plenty more from you in a week's time in France, but until then, congratulations once more and have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. Have a good night.
So hearing there from Chris Kirkland, the pro driver for Downforce Racing, and what a day it has been for him today. In the fact, in qualifying, feeling as though it wasn't quite there versus his rivals and struggling to a degree in qualifying in terms of getting the lap time down. A P5 overall, however, and it's interesting to hear that perspective of the struggle versus what we thought was a very strong qualifying performance, albeit when you put it in the perspective of versus Casper Tunstead, not quite able to find that lap time to take what was the pro pole position, with Tunstead putting together a phenomenal lap to put him on the next row up. Then when we went racing, it seemed as though the struggles that Chris had found in qualifying had started to go away. Talking there in particular about changing some bits on the setup to focus on the tyre preservation, but also in a way resetting and getting ready to go again in the race, and very early on taking the lead of the pro class, albeit aided somewhat by a bit of a mistake from Casper, but still you got to seize on those opportunities and following those elite drives on through, and then the focus turned more and more on chasing down that overall podium, something he was denied at Motorland Aragon despite picking up the win at the Spanish circuit. But Spanish soil has definitely proven to be invaluable to Chris Kirkland, and in the end he was able to make it a P2 overall. And also there mentioned he did not change tyres in the pits, well, it would have saved him a little bit of time potentially in the pits, but also at the same time opting to stay with a compound that would be worn down to naught come the end of it, but still feeling as though he could make it work, and he did make it work, and that is a sign of a stellar performance. And whilst he may not be in contention for the Pro Championship anymore this season, we can confirm it's mathematically impossible now for the Downforce Racing driver to win the Pro Championship. He is definitely sending some huge signs through the paddock right now that come next season, he is one to watch out for, and for the remainder of the season, he is definitely somebody who is on the rise. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. You've heard from the following 4 drivers of Martin Tillin from TQ SimSport Kimi in the elite class, Ryan Moles from ProTech Motorsport also in the elite class, also the AM driver of RaceLab Esports AM Simon Andre Livingston, and lastly, who we just heard from Downforce Racing's Chris Kirkland Congratulations to all 4 of them on their respective results, and thank you to them for joining me in the interview room once again. But now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to turn our attentions to the provisional updated standings after 6 rounds of racing, and we kick off with the Elite Drivers' Championship. And as we can see, after 6 rounds, the advantage continues to grow in the favour of one driver in particular, and that is Erik Røseth, the Racing Lab Esports AM driver, who today seems to be in a class of his own at the front of the field. And whilst the Porsche perhaps was the strongest car on circuit to a considerable degree, he's still got to get it around the circuit over the course of the 45 minutes, and he did exactly that. And indeed, now with an advantage of 15 points with drop scores calculated for, it does look as though this championship is definitely now going more and more the way of Erik. However, keep in mind P2 is Håkon Grebstad, the new Motorsport drone defending champion, and well, today it has been a technical circuit that's favoured the Porsche, but next week it's going to be a power circuit which is going to favour for the most part what is the BMW M4 with long straights at Le Mans, and indeed we could expect Grebstad to come back strong. And well, given the fact we've got this constant back and forth between technical and power circuits all the way to the end of the season, it's going to be a nail biter, there's no question about it. Rhys Saunders in P3, the team at Year 1 driver, now falling into the battle for the spot to be effectively the runner-up outside of the top 2, with what is there a 9-point advantage over Ryan Davies, and the TU SimSport Kimi driver moving up into P4, and now 2 points ahead of Ryan Moles, the ProTech Motorsport driver, who with his great performance today gains a bit more ground and inches closer to that battle for P3. Ryan Walker in P6 for Satellite Racing. A quiet race has rewarded him well. He now moves up to P6 for Satellite Racing. 6 points get across Asphaug, with Martin Tillin a bit further behind in terms of only what is race finishing positions in P8 there for TU SimSport Timmy, but having a big boon to his championship progress today in the hunt for a top 5. And then we have Joe Newman P9 for Empire Motorsport ahead of Sam Sherwood, who completes the top 10. Peter Cox P11 for UKSimRacing Clark, best of rest after a difficult day today, seeing his race ended in the opening lap, and Mark Davison behind in P12, not in attendance today. The UKSimRacing Price driver drops down to P12 ahead of Damien Lobbett and Cy Anthony for Symphony Esports. Nathan Scott completes your top 15 for Empire Motorsport, the team being absent today, but we look forward to seeing them on circuit potentially in a week's time. And then Alex Hill, Sam Congreve and Andy Jones complete your Elite Championship standings, with Alex Hill on his debut picking up some key points for a top 5 Elite class finish and moving in to P16. We then come to the Pro class, and here we can see the complexion right now is very close at the very top. In the absence of Aaron McGregor today, and that means he now has 2 drop scores in effect, and it's Casper Tunstead who moves into the championship lead for Peak Sim Racing. Albeit we have to keep in mind that right now McGregor has 2 zeros for his drop scores, so every point he earns from this point onwards will go into McGregor's bank account compared to Tunstead's proverbial points bank account here, where he'll have to improve on previous results. The Peak Sim Racing driver cannot be denied the fact that these results continue to come his way, and after what was his win at Road Atlanta to pick up the 2nd place today at Barcelona-Catalunya, it is a sign of things to potentially come. In the battle for P3 behind, it's only 2 points off for Matt Strand, and well, really we should say he's still batting for the top step as well, and we've got a 3-way fight going all the way to the wire, it would seem, with the Racing Out Esports and Free driver picking up in the end what was 3rd place and making sure to stay on the podium when he's not even a chance of the win. And in P4, Darren Sharples, an early instant cost in the UK Sim Racing Price driver Deer, and therefore he doesn't gain or lose any points today. It becomes a drop score from Spain, but the key point being the UK Sim Racing Price driver becomes an outsider now in this battle, but it is still a 4-way fight for the top step of the championship and that championship crown come the end of the season. Daniel Pays in P5 for Old Dudes in Cars, now starting to fall out of reach of the top, albeit still mathematically in reach of the possibility of taking the Pro Championship crown, but he'll need the results to start to swing his way soon, and he has a 2-point advantage over teammate Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars, and it shows you how the ODIC team have really come along and together over the course of this season. In P7, we do have Brandon Hay for Newbridge Esports. Another solid performance today from the number 96 BMW M4 driver. He picks up some key points to keep him 3 points clear of Chris Kirkland. And Kirkland, with that win today, jumps back into P8 for Downforce Racing. And it's a result that could not have come any time sooner, in the fact now he is 2 points clear of Alexander Truman and Mikkelsen, with Bevan Thompson completing your top 10, the privateer, and 4 points clear of Bester SP11 and Lever for UK Sim Racing Price. In P12, we have Mark Johnson there, the UK SimRacing Clark driver, once again battling hard to get some key points on the board, but he'll be happy with that. He moves into his highest place in the championship thus far, and ahead of Chris Constable. And then a further 13 points to Kerry Corcoran, who moves to P14 ahead of Giles Phillips. And then it's Richard Jones ahead of what is Rob Armstrong, Aaron Beaver, Lewis Payne, and Rudy Witzland, who complete your top 20. And I mentioned there to Richard Jones with those 27 points, moves up into P16. Outside the top 20 of Ian Manners P21 for 52 Racing, ahead of Martin Fernie, and then yet to score any points alongside Martin Fernie, John Watt, Joe McManus and Aaron Herbert, who on his debut had that unfortunate retirement early on in the race, and the team hard driver had to wait for round number 7 to get some points on the board. We then come to the AM class, last not least, in our Drivers' Championships. And here we can see Simon Andre Livingston takes the top of the championship now with 155 points to the 146 of Jack Wyborn. And Wyborn today and TPA Racing as a whole having another difficult day of racing. And it means Racing Lab Esports AM gain momentum. Meanwhile in P3, Steiner Sunny for Racing Lab Esports AM2 now moves to only 2 points off of P2. And it does look as though more and more that Livingston is growing in an advantage. But Steiner Sunny is keeping him honest, and Wyborn we're looking to try and arrest the poor form in the last couple of rounds in order to say that he is also a contender. Neil Smith in P4, with difficulties continuing to play him, holds on to P4 for Disaster Prone Racing, but he's only 2 points clear of Stuart Pearson for Slow and Steady Racing, who his first podium of the season moves into P5 and only ahead of Satinder Deansett based on result countback, with the TQ Sim Sport Toa driver not in attendance tonight. Tom Barjot, P7 there, head of James Conley, with Matt Edmondson and Stephen Parker Hamilton completing your top 10, and one day for the TPA Racing driver, the result will come. Bad luck has hit him once again today, where a win could have moved him far up the order, and it's Marvin Cruz a further 4 points behind Bester SP11 for Bike Racing. 8 points clear of Paul Joseph Cliss, with John Doble, Sean Gaffney and Sander Rustad completing top 15. And keep your eyes on the P15 driver from Team Norway Racing. He continues to show himself as a race win contender, albeit it's mathematically impossible for him to take the championship crown. But I do wonder if he may pick up his first win of the season before we're all done and dusted, and whether he could potentially end up being a permutation in the who takes the AM crown when it's all said and done. Outside the top 15, to complete your top 20, it's BJ Alvarez, Cy Hartley, Ricky Ping, Matt Maddox and Frank Klein, with the bottom two most drivers they've been separated only in result countback, and we look forward to seeing them in future rounds. But then lastly, we come onto the team's championship standings, and we show you the top 30 of a grand total of 32 teams in attendance for this championship now. And as we can see, at Racing Lab Esports AM take the lead on 318 points ahead of ProTech Motorsport, and more Racing Lab Esports AM right now starting to drive away from the rest of the field, and ProTech Motorsport instead focusing out on holding on to that second place spot. They have an advantage over TQ Sim Sport Kimi of what is their 18 points, with the third place team conscious of the fact Racing Lab Esports AM2 are hot on their heels, and TPA Racing fall to the bottom end of the top 5 on 243 points, but still 3 clear of Old Dudes in Cars, who leapfrogged their way into P6 and now are looking for a top 5 finish. UK Sim Racing Prize hold of UK Sim Racing Clark by 32 points in the battle for P7, and then UK Sim Racing Moss and TQ Sim Sport Tower completing your top 10. And behind them, Slow and Steady Racing in P11 on 171 points and now hold a 4-point advantage over Downforce Racing. We can see that both teams practically gaining the same points, 63 for SAS Racing, head of 64 Downforce Racing, and then Empire Motorsport, Ignition Motorsport and Peak Sim Racing complete your top 15. With Racing Lab Esports and 3 points outside the top 15. And still looking for a huge bounty of points as our Team Year 1, Symphony Esports, Disaster Prone Racing and Satellite Racing. And then outside the top 20, P21, it's Bike Racing at 30 points behind the top 20, but ahead of Olympus Esports. And there is Simulation Motorsport ahead of Philips GP and Team Norway Racing, albeit I think some of the points there may be incorrect in the totals, but the positions are correct, we can assure you of that. And then to round off the top 30, it's Team Sim Racing Chicago ahead of Aspire Racing Team, with ProTech Academy, 9 Sheets at Autosport and 52 Racing completing your top 30, and yet to get any points on the board at P31 and P32, it's Team Harden, AI Racing, DCW Racing respectively. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the UK Sim Racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid for a future season of the UK Sim Racing GT3 League, or you want to know more about other series we have running and how you can be on the grid for those. Well, to find out all that information and more, all you need to do is go to our official website, and that is uksimracing.co.uk. You saw the website earlier in the broadcast today. It's straightforward, very well laid out, and therefore all the information is readily available. Alternatively, if you're more of a social media person, the best place to go for social social media at UKSR is to follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_. We can keep up to date with all the latest news at UK Sim Racing, but also keep up to date with all the latest escapades, trials and tribulations of the official UK Sim Racing esports teams. We'd also like to take this moment to say a big thank you to our affiliates, which do include Swilly Almeida Sim Racing Coaching, and indeed the creator of the Motor Racing Checklist. Swilly Almeida's Sim Racing Coaching can help take your sim racing drone to the next level. Whether you're looking to gain a 10th, improve your approach to the racing line, or develop your consistency, Swilly Almeida has a coaching course to meet your needs. Plus, with Swilly being a multi-time champion of official iRacing series, including the 2021 PSCC, you know you're receiving coaching from the very best in the industry. We also have Race Anywhere, the provider of curated sim racing equipment aimed to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. Demon Tweets, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide, so no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweets could help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions. SimLab, the leading manufacturer of high-quality sim racing-related hardware. As a proud partner of Mercedes-AMG Petronas Esports, SimLab aims to enhance virtual racing experiences with uncompromising solutions that push the boundaries of esports and make SimLab the go-to brand for quality sim racing rigs. Amazon, the company trying to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, which do include, but are not limited to, Amazon Prime, Amazon Fire TV, and Amazon Alexa. And lastly, SRC Driver Academy, a division of Sim Racing Community. You can elevate your sim racing skills with SRC Driver Academy. Their team of experienced professionals is dedicated to helping you reach your full potential without compromising on quality. But why choose them specifically? Well, let's put it simply. Affordable, quality coaching. They have experienced coaches who provide valuable insights and a competitive edge. They make higher quality coaching accessible to all at an affordable cost, tailored to your needs and goals. You can learn race strategies, precision driving, and much more. And they offer virtual coaching sessions at nearly all hours of the day, every day, ensuring flexibility for all. Join SRC Driver Academy today and unlock your true sim racing potential. Do visit their website to learn more and accelerate your sim racing career. But with that, ladies and gents, we now turn our attentions to round number 7. For next Sunday on the 20th of August 2023, we unleash our field onto the first endurance race of the season, and it will be at the Circuit de 24 du Mans. Having recently celebrated the centenary of the legendary race, our drivers will be looking to enshrine their names into history in the first endurance race of the season, and looking to go for the ultimate prize of what will be at least 40 points for the win, and on top of that, it could be championship defining. But who is going to outlast the circuit, which will put man and machine to the ultimate test? We'll find out then. But until then, we've been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.